we are going to get behind the music of Hex Machine and talk about his productions, events, and more. So big thanks to those of you tuning in today. I'm getting back into the swing of doing these interviews on here, and you can find them later up on YouTube as well under Vox Sinistra. So welcome, Hex Machine. Thanks for joining me here.
Absolutely.
So to give you a little brief overview of who Hex Machine is, I'm just going to share a little bio. Um, Hex Machine is a veteran of the darkwave, goth, industrial, and dark techno scenes. Having toured extensively in Europe, the Middle East, and America, Hex Machine's sound is extremely diverse and multifaceted. A classically trained musician and studio engineer, Hex Machine blends industrial tribal beats and dark ritualistic atmospheres with exciting and innovative musical virtuosity. And he also runs the event series in Phoenix, Arizona, which I've had the pleasure of playing a couple times now. And spoiler alert, might be returning in the future. Um,
Definitely.
and located in the heart of downtown Phoenix, 6 feet under, Goth Nights take place at the legendary Palazzo and is Arizona's dark underground music destination with its baroque decor and Victorian-style interior, which features a rotating, luminescent grand chandelier. 6 feet under creates a truly immersive modern Gothic experience. The monthly events draw a distinct crowd with dark aesthetics and alternative lifestyles who come to enjoy the blend of post-punk, EBM, industrial, and darkwave beats, which includes haunting tunes from resident DJ Hexmaschine, hey, that's you, and special
Absolutely.
guests. 6 Feet Under is known for its tight-knit community, where individuals find a sense of belonging and self-expression away from mainstream norms. And I can speak from personal experience that, and I can speak from personal experience. That's me talking there. Whoops. Um, that it is a great night, and all of those things I find to be true as well. Really fantastic atmosphere, really great music overall. Really impressed with all the stuff that Hex Machine is doing over there in Phoenix, bringing goth to the Wild West. Okay, so now that we've gotten your little intros going, people know a little bit who we're meeting with today. We're going to get into some basic questions, and that a little bit later, we are going to listen to some of Hex Machine's music, including the 3 tracks. That's right, not one, not two, 3 tracks released on Strict Tempo, my new label, my, I guess, like club night turned video podcast turned record label, but all those other things still as well. um, I've had the pleasure of releasing 3 tracks already, 2 remixes and an original track from Hex Machine, and I think they're all really fantastic. So we're going to listen to those a little bit later and talk about them, and also a couple of Hex Machine's EPs. And you have a, a pretty vast catalog, um, and we'll talk about why you chose these 2 EPs and a couple other tracks out of all of your other ones as well. I mean, I don't know if there was much strategy involved there, but we probably didn't have time to listen to the entire catalog, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, so we're gonna do that a little bit later. But first, let's dive into some basic questions here. Um, so, do you want to tell us about how you started producing music? When did you start DJing? When did basically the music journey begin for you?
Well, the music journey began really, really young, actually. I think it was when I first, my dad had this like 8-track sound system he had set up when he had a bunch of 8-track tapes. And in that whole catalog he had, which was huge, he had some disco ones. He actually had Thank God It's Friday. I don't know if you remember that old disco movie from like the 70s. It's got like Donna Summer's music in there, and it's
I
crazy.
I don't know that one.
Yeah,
I'll have
it's
to
if
check
you
that
ever
out.
get a chance, go watch it because it's a trip. Anyway, so he had that, and then he had like the Staying Alive soundtrack. And then he had all of Donna Summer's albums, which were all produced by Georgia Moroder. So as a kid, I would just love it. I mean, I was young and I was like eating it up. I must have been like 11 or 12. And I just loved, listening to all that stuff. I listened to it constantly, just like, getting my own little fantasy world about it. But I love that repetitive beats. I love those synthesized beats already that Giorgio Moroder was producing for Donna Summer. And I think that's like the first time that I really did. But I was also into metal, and all that crazy stuff. When you're a teenager, I was into a lot of metal and punk stuff. And then, but listening to those disco beats, it kind of like I was into the heavy like hardcore scene at the time too, like the hardcore punk scene, because I used to skate a lot too. I was a skater, and I was a pro skater when I was a teenager, but I skated a lot with my buddies, and they were into all that music. That's how I discovered some of it, just like the punk stuff. And so that just transitioned me into wanting to find out, about cool underground music. And there was this cool record store, used to be at Scottsdale Civic Center back in the day, because that's where Sidewalk Surfer, which was actually the skate shop, used to be. And then right next to Sidewalk Surfer, they had this underground record shop called Roads to Moscow, and so that's how I discovered a lot of my music, was just going in there. I could discover Sisters of Mercy, Joy Division, all these bands. That was in the early '80s, and then I got into. He started buying some like really obscure like cold wave synth music and just stuff, German stuff like Gary Newman and Kraftwerk and all these different genres that I'd never heard of before. And so I discovered a lot of it at there. And then another record store called Rolling Stone Records. Also, this guy, because he knew I liked crazy stuff. So I went in there one day and he goes, "Hey, I got this really cool album I want you to hear." And he put on Kraftwerk Computer World. And it blew my mind. It was like 1981. And I was like blown away by it. 2 years later, I started DJing at 17, because that's when the drinking age used to be 19. The drinking age here in AZ and in California was 19. So everybody was getting in. Like, you never got carded unless you looked like really young. So I used to go to this place called Hot Bods. It was like an after hours, like mixed gay bar. And it was badass. It was on like 40th Street in McDowell here in Phoenix. And they had after hours. And that's the first time. And I went there with some friends, and we were getting in like when we were, 17. And that was the first time I heard like a DJ like mixing, like playing tracks back to back, just like seamless mixes without stopping, no dead air, and it was so underground and dark in there. And he was playing like killer, all the early killer synthwave, but high energy too, like the gay high energy that like it's so awesome, like Sylvester, Patrick Cowley,
Yeah,
all those
yeah,
kind of tracks. Yeah, and I was like blown away, and I was like, that just like zapped me. Like I went there for one night, and it like changed everything, changed my whole life. I knew right then, like, okay, I want to do what he's doing. Like, and he was
yeah.
elevated above, he was above like the
Uh-huh.
dance. You couldn't really see what he was doing.
Yeah, we need
Um,
more of those DJ booths back, honestly, the ones that
yeah,
just sort of lord above the
exactly,
audience.
exactly. Yeah, it was so cool. It
You're
was
kind
so
of
cool.
tucked away, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. It was
Uh,
all about the music, It wasn't about the, rah rah EDM hands in the air crap. It was all about like the
yeah,
music
yeah. Just
and just getting lost
in
in it,
some dark corner. That's where I prefer to
Yeah,
be.
and that's how it was at this club. It was wicked. Yeah, yeah, just like
EDM
that.
hands, OMG, my
Yeah, so
nemesis.
yeah.
So I really like this idea that, you were around when kind of like the inception of these genres were, forming. And so you were listening to both like sort of the hard music, like metal and punk music and hardcore, you said.
Yeah.
And you also really like a disco fan. So would you say that was like a rare combination to be into both of those scenes
Oh
at the same
yeah.
time?
Oh yeah. Like all my hardcore buddies would hate on me constantly. They're like, because they would get in my car, and my dad had auto parts place, so we were always working on muscle cars and stuff. So every week I was driving like a different car, like I would have like a souped up Maverick, and then I had like an El Camino and a Nova and just all these cars. And in those cars, I would play, what my stuff, the stuff I wanted to hear. And he used to get really pissed off at me because, they were so like, into this whole like hardcore ethos, kind of attitude, punk rock attitude. And so then I would throw on, Kraftwerk or, Donna Summers or something really what to them super cheesy, and they'd freak out. But then I got it. Then they started liking it though. The more I would play it in the cars, they would even ask me to put that stuff on. It was crazy. And that's how they discovered like Joy
Nice.
Division and Sisters of Mercy, which helped them cross over, into that style of music. Like they started listening to like more of the post-punk stuff. And then that helped
Hmm.
them, not feel so bad about, liking dance beats.
Well, yeah, because I mean, post-punk is really what happened when those sorts of vibes started to mesh together. You know, you have
Yes.
a lot of disco influence in post-punk. That's
Yeah.
like one of the core, musical principles of
Yeah.
how post-punk differs from punk. You know, you add all these different genres blending into it, and it became
Absolutely.
something else.
Yeah, totally.
Um, yeah, a more danceable version of itself. But yeah, I am interested in that just sort of cohesion of sounds, and it's a lot more welcomed now. Like everything is kind of massively cross genre now,
Yeah.
they're like inventing new genres that are like 10 different genres mixed together like every
Yeah. And I love that.
every
I
year now.
love that.
But yeah, I
Totally.
mean, I do get the sense that, the sort of like early 80s hardcore punk scene, that sort of vibe, was rooted in sort of like a machismo vibe,
Yeah.
to
It
some
had
extent.
it had both.
There's
Yeah.
outlier bands too that
Well,
were
what
a little bit
happened?
more progressive and,
Yes.
but
What happened?
yeah.
Yeah, what happened at the shows even then was that like because I used to go to a lot of the underground shows. Like in high school, I went to school with like Brian Brannon from JFA. I became really good friends with all these guys. We used to skate together every day. And Kevin Staub, who was like, I went to high school with him. We all went to high school, and he's also, he's like Tony Hawk's right hand, one of his right hand men in his skateboard company now. But all of us used to go to the shows, and we would go down, down in Phoenix and down to like Van Buren on the avenues. We'd go to places like Calderon Ballroom and Mad Gardens. And what happened was a lot of the cooler bands here in Phoenix, like Mighty Sphincter and Grant and the Geezers, a lot of like crossover bands like Hellfire, some of the other bands, they were like mixing psychobilly and hardcore. And then some of them were like starting to use synthesizers and things too in their music. Like even TSOL did that. They came out here and they played a show at Mad Gardens, and they were using like keyboards, and so you could see all that stuff slowly transforming into where it wasn't all about the macho, gang stuff. Cause it was in the beginning, man. I mean, I was in a gang, it was hardcore back then. So I was definitely into that whole, but I was in, kind of a straight edge gang. And we would go to the shows just to like get into trouble, I mean, we
Okay.
were
All
to
right.
like mess with other gangs, and that's how it was. That's how it was back then. And then we also,
I didn't know that was a thing in hardcore
yeah,
punk. That
oh
was.
yeah.
Can you describe what kind of gang was this? Sorry, I have
Well, there's just like
no
yeah, there,
concept of what
there was
that
a lot
might
of
have been like.
straight. There was a lot of straight edge gangs. There was a lot of Vato
Okay.
gangs. There was a lot of skate gangs.
Okay.
So all those things were kind of morphing together. Your buddies, you'd hang out, you'd kind of create these gangs and stuff there. And so
Uh-huh.
there were gangs at the time. I'm not gonna
But
mention names or anything because I might get, I don't want to out anybody or get in trouble.
for sure. So a
But
straight
yeah, I
edge
mean,
gang, though, I mean, you're straight edge is like, just not drinking or doing drugs and
right,
stuff. So it's
right,
not really how
right.
people might traditionally perceive the word gang,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
being
But that's
like
how it was. We were
doing
very like,
crimes.
yeah, we were kind of militant about it. We're kind of
Hmm.
we actually would get into brawls with other gangs that were kind of like Nazi gangs and stuff like that. That's why I was so excited to do the Nazi goth track,
Mm.
because I have a lot
Okay.
of history with all that. There was a lot of Nazi gangs back then, especially
Yeah,
here
yeah, for
in
sure.
AZ. There was a lot of, it was really racist back here in the early in the late 70s, early 80s. Very racist. I remember getting handed out like KKK pamphlets at high school and shit. People would hand those
Yikes.
to. Yeah, it was brutal. It was brutal. So
Uh-huh.
there was both those elements. You had the elements of the really, yeah, there was a lot of racist skinhead stuff going on back then. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Um,
so I dealt with that. I mean, we all dealt with that. And but then there was cool people though. It was like an arty scene too here in Phoenix. There was like a lot of cool people going to the shows back then. A lot of the arty crowd, and that's where like the whole goth thing started to take off, was from the punk scene here. That's where it started to really manifest itself. A lot of people started dressing, more in that, in the mid '80s, more of that Cure, Susie and the Banshees look. People started adoring that kind of, with the makeup and everything. I mean, I remember all of us wearing
yeah.
like dark eyeliner under our eyes and all those things. And then I even was in a band called Dark Shadows, which was like was a goth band.
Hmm.
back then. Some really good friends of mine. I don't even know where any of those guys are anymore. Most of
Do
them, but
you still have recordings of that somewhere?
I only have pictures. I only have pictures of
Oh,
it
really?
performing. Pictures
So
of us
did you
performing.
ever record or
No, we
like
never
play
did.
live or
Yeah, we played live a bunch of times.
yeah?
But
So it's just a
it was
live band
hard to
then.
get like that was hard to get like record things going at that time. But the bands
Yeah.
that
The
record deals,
internet wasn't really a thing,
right,
so
right. But the bands that were getting record
it's helped
deals here
things.
were like Junior Achievement, JFA, um, Meat Puppets.
Huh.
Yeah,
Meat
a
Puppets
bunch.
were from Phoenix?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're one of the greatest, greatest early punk bands ever.
Yeah, they're great
And then they progressed on to other different styles, or kind of
for
psychedelic.
sure.
They're amazing. I saw them so many times. But yeah, we had a close thing going on with the whole LA hardcore scene. I mean, I was over there. I was living over there. Going back and forth between here and
So
LA.
are you from Phoenix or the LA area
Well, I
or
was born in Denver, Colorado,
oh,
but
okay.
but my parents moved to California when I was like 3.
I see.
So yeah, and then my dad was like a fashion buyer for all these fashion stores. So he was traveling a
Hmm.
lot. We'd go from there to Phoenix, back to California, back to Phoenix, back to California. I lived all over Southern California, San Diego, all over the place. Yeah, when I was a kid. So
I see. But
and
it sounds like you spent a lot of time in Phoenix, though. Is that like
yeah,
where you spent
I spent the
most of your time?
majority of my life in Phoenix, but also
Mhm.
California, and then overseas too. So I lived
Yeah,
overseas.
yeah, for sure. Oh, you're cutting out a bit. I can't hear you anymore.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, yeah, that was weird. You just cut out for a second.
Oh,
As,
right.
well, anyway, so okay, so how did you start hosting events and shows?
Well, like I said, I started DJing when I was like 17.
Hmm.
First bought these hardcore like belt drive turntables because I didn't know anything at the time. I didn't know anything about pitch controls and all the stuff you needed to like really do those kind of mixes. So when I started out on turntables, I was actually using like the regular, household turntables that people got. I had like 2 of them. I had 2. One was a Sony and I think the other one was like a Technics, but not a Technics 1200 kind of thing. So I was using those and I was learning how to mix, but I couldn't control the pitches. So I was having to like find tracks that would kind of match with each other. I was doing that and I was making my own little
Hmm.
tapes and everything. And then I just saved up and bought, 2 1200s. And then from then I started, I was just in my bedroom like 24/7, learning how to mix.
Hmm.
Yeah. I didn't
Which
have,
is
there
actually
was no
very
YouTube. There
difficult
were no YouTube
on
videos. Yeah, there was no YouTube stuff.
with records, it's a whole different game. There's no sync button there.
And there was no YouTube videos or any of that stuff that didn't exist. So we'd mail order records because you had to mail order everything. I mean, some of the record stores could carry some cool stuff, but if I wanted to get the dope like dance tracks and all that, I had to like do all mail order stuff. And so those records would come and I would just set for hours and just learn how to mix. But I saved up for 1200s and bought them. And back then, I think they were like 300 and something a piece. Now they're way more. But
Yeah, I was gonna say that seems pretty cheap.
yeah, so I saved up for those, bought those, and yeah, it was amazing. And then a buddy of mine knew a friend who knew a friend, and so I got this night at a club called the Yazoo, um, back in the day.
After the band?
I don't know if they named it after that or not, but it was called Yazoo. It was, it was
Okay. All
it was
right.
full on 80s, full
Yeah.
on 80s,
Because that
styles.
seems kind of weird to name your club after like a popular band,
I
but
don't think
maybe it
it
was
did. It was just, yeah, I don't know. It was weird. Anyway,
coincidence.
yes, I
Okay.
started playing there and a bunch of other spots, and yeah, and so then I would DJ a lot. When I hit that 21-year-old era when they did the cutoff date. So if you were when they went back to being 21, they had a cutoff date. So if you were born on, I believe it was uh, January or December 31st, 1983, you could drink. But if you were born on the 1st or January 1st of 1984, that's when the cutoff date happened. So you'd have to wait another 2 years to be able to get into the clubs and alcohol and stuff.
Uh-huh.
did it with the cutoff date.
Yeah, that's a bit awkward.
Yeah, yeah, it was tough because some people had friends and this. And
Uh-huh.
but that's the way they did it. So yeah, but then I just started trying to do as much as I could, just finding people. I used to go watch this guy Dave Rochbut. He was really inspiring. He actually worked at this club. I think it was called Max's back then, 919. Then it turned into Club Freedom years later. But he would play a lot of like techno, like he'd play a lot of synth poppy kind of Italo stuff. Like that's the first time I heard My Mind by my Hypnotic Tango by My Mind. I heard that
Oh,
track there.
okay.
And yeah, he
I
was,
played that track at your night last time I was there.
I know, I remember. Yeah, I get that remix
Uh,
by 909 guys. What's that? 909
yeah.
Distortion and
909 Distortion. I think it's Axga. I
yeah,
don't know
I
how to say
got
that
like
possibly
that.
that way.
Yeah, those guys
Yeah.
are great. Those guys
Yeah.
are great.
Doing all the
I love,
cool 80s
yeah, I
remixes from
love their
Argentina.
remixes. Yeah, those guys are killing it. They're killing it.
Mm. Yes.
I love
More
I love
remixes,
all the
please.
remixes. Yeah, I play that at 6 feet under a lot. I love their stuff. But so
Nice.
yeah, that's where I heard tracks like that. And then but he was also playing like really cool like underground tracks like by like underground, acid house stuff, like by Mickey Oliver, like Intensity, and that's the first time I heard that. Um, Acid Thunder by Fast Eddie. So I was hearing all this stuff, and so that's what was cool about the clubs back then was you could play goth, industrial, acid house, techno, all this stuff. All the DJs we were playing all that stuff. A lot of the new beat stuff too that was coming out.
Hmm.
And then I met a buddy, a friend of mine,
Yeah, and
Randall.
I didn't really think that was played much in the US, but that's cool.
The
That
underground clubs it was, yeah, we played it a
yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Okay.
And so then I met Randall at the time, and we started doing some shows. Yeah, and then I play with him at some of the other clubs like Asylum I played at, um, which was really cool. That's a great club. That was a great club back in the day. It was like a kind of goth industrial club too.
Hmm.
Off Hayden and like God, I can't remember Hayden and like it was past McKellips. It was a cool club. God, I'm trying to think of all the clubs back then. There were so many of them. It's a club called Planet Earth. Um, and then anyway, then this God Party Gardens, so many places. I'm trying to just think of all the places. But anyway, we started doing nice together. And we started doing some warehouse parties too called the Underground Sound. We partnered up on that.
Around what year was this?
Oh God, it was like late 80s, probably 88, 89, maybe.
Okay.
And then we did stuff even together into the early 90s. And then he started a club called Atomic Cafe, which is now called Pub Rock. But he started this club called Atomic Cafe. And I used to guest there a lot too. And he, he would do that, the whole thing there too, with all it. He got into a lot more of the grungier sound and things like that. But he was still doing cool nights. But then we kind of parted ways, and I went more into the dark techno aspect of things, real heavy
Sure,
into acid
sure.
house and dark techno. And
Hmm.
but we did a lot of stuff together. And then at that time is when like Eddie Amador, Pete Salas, a lot of those guys were doing like the more underground house stuff. They were doing the red room, blue room, green room stuffs in like on the train tracks in downtown Phoenix, just in these warehouses, like tin warehouse sheds. It was badass. It was a killer time back then. It was a cool scene because you had all these different kinds of musics that were all these genres were kind of blending together to create that sound. Um, and then the
Yeah.
whole summer of love thing happened, in the late 80s. I was actually over there during that in England in 1988. I was there during the summer of love.
Hmm.
I had a couple of DJs, and that's when the whole acid house thing blew up. And then I
Yeah.
came back to Phoenix and LA and started doing that, and then started doing parties with Swell Records. And Swell was like a real big influence here with they had a bunch of really good DJs like DJ Emil, Z Trip, Radar, Joe Bear, Sean, so many guys that were like really integral in the early desert rave parties here. And so we started throwing desert rave parties really hardcore.
Were there
Um,
many female DJs doing that
no,
sort of
not a
thing back
lot,
then?
not a lot. There
Or
was
just in
Sandra
general?
Collins. There was Sandra Collins, but she moved to LA, and she actually like I think she started dating Frankie Bones for a while because Frankie came out here and did a bunch of shows. He actually did a show at a club I used to work at called Silver Dollar in Phoenix. That was like 91. It was a really cool club. We did goth nights there. We did everything. That was Randy Blankenship ran that club. Um,
Hmm.
that was like a really underground club. They had Chupa going on at the time too, which Chupa was kind of like an after hours place. That's where like DJ Anton, and Eddie Amador would do a lot of shows, just after hours, like really dark, just with the strobe light going off, acid house stuff. And
Sure.
so, and we would do that also at Silver Dollar. And then, but yeah, there was a couple of, I think Sandra was like the only really big DJ back at that time, Sandra Collins. And then, but she went more like into the trance progressive style kind of stuff. And she moved to LA, and then her career took off. I don't know if you know who she is or not, but she was a big, like progressive house trance DJ from here.
Yeah, I'm not especially into those genres. I do like some of the new, like harder Euro trance sort of stuff, but I don't really like the 90s stuff.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that progressive sound at all. I didn't play any of that. I played mostly like the darker techno shit.
The sort of like Goa trance, that sort of stuff that's more like kind of almost EBM industrial influence. Well, Goa trance is, but
when it comes,
like the harder stuff.
That came from the New Beat sound.
Yeah, for sure.
They ripped off a lot of that stuff. Like I was there in Israel during that time when that all like transformed. I used to play at a club called Hamasker Shashim, and we would play those kind of sounds. Like when it crossed over. I remember that song, a song that I like think a lot helped make, well, two artists, but the song Ecstasy. No, what's the name of that? Those guys.
I know what you're talking about.
Alan Scanner.
Chimobeo. There we go.
Yeah, Chimobeo. That's it. Yeah. So that track and some tracks.
I played his remix of it recently, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, and some tracks that Ramirez was doing. I don't know if you know Ramirez, but he did this track couple ago and a bunch of other tracks. Anyway, that was kind of like the precursor to the whole Goa sound. Like it came from that new beat sound, and kind of like with the arpeggiated synths, those arpeggiated bass lines, the real intense arpeggiated bass lines. That's where that stuff came from.
Yeah.
And that's where that's what made Goa trance so huge. I think that was the inspiration, really.
I mean, we could do a whole episode, on the the origins of some of these genres. But so we're in the early 90s right now, and you're playing a lot of acid house. Where did you go from there?
Still industrial stuff too, because I really got into that Razormaid sound a lot. So I actually had like a subscription to Razormaid, because that's how it was back then. So I had subscriptions to Razormaid, and that's the only
subscriptions.
Yeah. It was
what did you get with that? I'm so curious.
It was a DJ subscription service. So and every month they would put out, new vinyls or CDs, but I would get both. I'd get the vinyl and the CD. So I had all that stuff. So I was, Art, I remember Art Mayhard and Joseph Watt, they were still in San Francisco. Joseph actually lives here now in Scottsdale, but I know he's not doing well. I don't think he's doing well at all health-wise. So yeah, and then Art passed away years ago, but Art's the one I used to talk to all the time. Communicate with him. We'd have these long talks all the time on the telephone because I was so into the music, and I would just talk to him about DJing and stuff. And he would do that for like hours. And he did a lot of the early remixes too of those cool new beat. Remember all the early new beat they had on Razormaid?
I have a ton of those on vinyl actually.
Yeah,
that I bought through Discogs over the years, and a bunch of digital versions too. But I'm very familiar with that stuff. I go after the remixes for sure in general, those dance remixes.
I mean, that stuff would come in the mail and it would be like, so excited when that stuff would arrive because it would just be, and they were so cool, with all the different colored vinyl. They're the only ones.
You couldn't preview it on Bandcamp before back in the day, We're talking snail mail here.
Yeah. So those guys were like way ahead of their time, because they were into the whole SF club scene back then, and they went to Europe a lot, just to find that music, to find those bands, and a lot of that killer stuff. So they'd bring that back, and that's how I got exposed to a lot of that style of music. So I was playing that while I was playing techno, while I was playing acid. I was playing those industrial sounds. I was playing the new beat stuff, all that stuff. That was the early 90s. So. Yeah, that's music. And then their club opened up called The Works, which this guy Steven opened up. He's actually the owner of the club you were just at, Palazzo.
Okay.
The first club I DJ'd at for him, the first big club was The Works in Scottsdale.
Yeah, that place is really It's got like a special aesthetic,
Yeah, oh, that's what
It
he
looks
was all
very,
about.
very
Yeah,
old school. Do you know when, like how old that building is, or like when it was made,
really
or
old.
like
It's
was
gotta
it
be.
repurposed from another type of business or something?
I don't know what it was originally, but I just remember playing there because it used to be. He also had it as a club. It was when he first did it. It was called the World. It was a techno club.
Mm,
I used to play
okay,
there, and then he had the club next to it, which is downtown now. But at the time, it was called um, Crowbar. It was a gay bar, and I
okay.
used to DJ. I had a residency there as well, so I DJed there quite a bit, and that was after. Both those clubs were after hours. And then
Hmm.
at the World, he's bringing in a lot of big DJs, a lot of big, techno DJs, everything. And then in the 90s, a lot of that's where a lot of that sound started influence too, like the Prodigy and all those kind of things. They all came and they played at the Works, the one in Scottsdale. So I had a residency there. Then so did Marcus Schultz at the time. I don't know if you know who Marcus Schultz is. He's a big trance DJ, but back then he played like techno
No.
stuff, cool underground techno stuff. And then they got a side room that was all like 80s and all that kind of stuff. So
Oh, that. Um.
Scottsdale now, Scottsdale's terrible now. It's,
Oh, 1 second.
all mainstream.
You cut out for a second, and I heard like a strange sound. Like there was like
Oh, that was my
a
alarm
blip
going
of
off,
music. Oh.
my phone alarm.
Okay, I was like, it sounded like a ringtone, but this is 2024.
Yeah,
Was that a ringtone?
it's like an arpeggiated sound on the phone from. I just have
Oh,
alarms set throughout the day to remind me to do.
okay. It was just like a regular phone alarm. Okay. You're not rocking the like Y2K era
No.
ringtones.
No.
I mean, it's okay if you are. Okay, so you're like in the mid 90s ish now. You're DJing a lot of clubs in Phoenix. Can you tell me
Yeah,
about
well,
some other
in
stuff
Phoenix
you were?
and Scottsdale, because Silver Dollar was still open, but then when the Works opened up, it kind of killed all the other clubs in Phoenix that were happening at the time. It was just like it
Hmm.
was the place, and that club lasted on. I left there from doing. I had a residence there on Saturday nights, 91, 92. I left. I was playing there off and on, and then I left. And when I left, I went to do some stuff over in Israel and Germany. And then Marcus Schultz, he was, well, actually, Eddie Amador was there on Fridays too for a while. Then I was doing Saturdays with Mike Gomez. And then Marcus Schultz took over after we left and started doing that night. Now Marcus is a big giant trance DJ like Tiesto and all this stuff. But back then he played like really cool, like techno stuff. Now he's really super mainstream with his sound. But back then he played, and that club went like for like 7 or 8 years. And then it finally got dozed. Now it's a parking lot for the hospital.
So, were you still doing like goth industrial sort of sets, like in the mid 90s? Because I know
Hmm?
that there was kind of a time when that sound wasn't as, there wasn't as much being made, or like
No.
for
Yeah.
me, the quality shifted a lot after the early 90s. I mean, for
Yeah.
industrial,
Yeah.
and I don't
Yeah.
really listen to a lot of like 90s, later like 90s goth either. So did you shift more to an electronic sound at that point, or were you still playing like kind of
Absolutely.
like the 80s stuff, or?
Absolutely. I was playing more electronic stuff. That's when I started going really more into the heavy techno stuff.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and Goa Trance even. I played a lot of Goa Trance. I was playing that over in Israel. Did a bunch of parties over there with Astral Projection, Shlomi Zidane. Uh, Played some parties with Infected Mushroom. Yeah, just a bunch. I mean, that was a killer sound back then. So there was a lot of cool clubs in Israel that were playing that kind of stuff. But that was a little bit later on. That was in the late 90s, early 2000s. But yeah, in the mid 90s, I just went pretty much full on like into the rave scene hardcore because that's just where the new music was coming.
Right.
A lot of the good underground stuff. To me, it was dark. It was all dark music. There was nothing, happy joy about it. It was all about being in a warehouse, just, listening to mechanical beats and mechanized
Well,
music.
I
That's
mean,
what it was
I
about.
think a lot of people kind of don't perceive the relationship between punk and rave music. And, really, a lot of electronic music is just punks who discover synths. So,
Exactly. Exactly. You just perfect description of what totally happened. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
was doing a lot of shows with those guys from Detroit. Like I was felt really, really heavily connected to that sound. Like I loved that sound. And that's when I started making music, was around that time. And I brought a lot of those DJs out here and I did huge events with them. I had Robert Hood out here, Chuck Hampton, Alton Miller, Dan Bell, all Kevin Saunderson, all the big techno guys from Detroit. Because they were also inspired by all those sounds from those early techno pop synth bands, the early Kraftwerk stuff. Juan
mhm.
Atkins, he all those guys were amazing, and I met a lot of those guys when I was DJing in Germany too. I did a bunch of
Mhm.
parties with Felix the House Cat. Also with Kevin Saunderson, I played a bunch of parties over in Munich, Germany, in a place called Alabama Hall. But that was later on. That was in the, that was in the, I guess that was around 96, 97, 98. And because that's when, like all those guys, like I saw great sets by like DJ Hell, and DJ Hell had a residency at a club called Ultraschall in Munich, and he would just like destroy it with, I'm talking like hardcore industrial techno stuff. Like it was very minimal, but it was also like super like advanced as far as like breaking genres, because there was a lot of
Mhm.
influence. They were sampling off a lot of this old industrial stuff. Like a lot of techno guys, they sampled off a lot of those old industrial records and old industrial sounds, even in their music. All the
Okay.
wax track stuff, like a lot of the wax track stuff. Um, a lot of that influenced that sound. Techno was influenced by that, by those early new beat techno pop kind of records. They were really
Oh,
heavily influenced.
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we could talk about like the evolution of genres for quite a bit, but I always tell people that basically new beat led to, rave, trance,
Absolutely.
techno in Europe, and I mean, partially to
100%.
I mean, I think the progression for European electronic music is a little bit different than in the US. But it
Yeah.
all blended
Totally.
together a little bit. But
Hip
yeah.
hop influence too. We had the whole hip hop influence too. So that kind of
Oh
like
yeah, and electro is very
in
influenced by hip
electro,
hop.
big time, big time. Electro was, yeah, huge. But they were also by Kraftwerk, like even Africa Bambaataa and all those guys, and
Mhm.
Twilight, what's there, Twilight 22, Electric Kingdom, all those kind of songs. El Fish, I think that's how you say it. I'm probably destroying that name. The Soul. I don't know if you remember that track. The Soul. Um, all those early electro tracks also inspired like a lot of those. They were inspired by Kraftwerk and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, all genres really are just like a
Yeah,
diverse medley of the things that came before it, right? To
totally,
some extent.
totally.
Well, certain specific things that came before it, but yeah.
Right.
New beat walked so those other genres could run.
Totally, absolutely,
Literally,
absolutely.
pace wise.
I mean, I still play that stuff in the club. I still play a lot of that new beat stuff like Tragic Error and you know, Split Second. All those stuff, like to me, all that stuff is so like it's like necessary. And if you don't know the history of this music, you don't really know what you're doing. I mean, you really don't. Like as far as like, and I can tell even with DJs, if they don't know the history of their music, I can tell. You can
Mhm.
feel it.
Well,
Um,
especially in like the sort of like dark alternative electronic scene, there's a lot of history there. So yeah, you're probably going to be able to tell if someone is into it on like a surface level, if they kind of discovered it and thought it sounded cool on you know an aesthetic level, or whether they
right,
really you know dive deep into the history of how those genres developed and sort of how the current sound has been made really. But
right, right.
I don't know,
Yeah.
as long as people are supporting cool music, I'm not
Oh yeah.
really splitting hairs
That's
about it too much, but
yeah. But you can just feel it. You can just feel.
uh,
I'm saying when someone plays, you can feel whether they're like, you can feel it whether they're connected to that. Because it shows in the sets. It shows in the
mhm.
you have that when you play. You've got that energy around it. You still got you got the history.
Well,
You have the history.
I
You have the
started
history.
out as specifically a music history, like 80s
There
music
you go.
nerd. So
There you
I
go.
started from the foundation and built,
Then.
towards
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
present. But I
Yeah.
guess that's sort of unusual for,
Yeah.
someone who
Well,
wasn't
that's right. Yeah.
involved with that scene. I got really into 80s music. This interview isn't about me, but as a
No,
teenager, and
that's
then
awesome. That's
started
why
with that. But
that's why you do what you do, and that's what's cool about it. And that's why I love sharing the older music that's like the underground stuff, the underground 80s, the stuff that no one hears about because and I love sharing that with the new crowds and the new heads because they get it. They love it. There's so many young people now that are so into that sound now and they get it and they love it and they eat, they just and that's so refreshing and so cool to see that because for a while the goth industrial scene was kind of this tight knit group. This is why I kind of like walked away from it for a few years. I wouldn't say I walked away from it, but I just wasn't playing in the scene anymore for a while because I felt very alienated in it. I felt like no one wanted to hear the new stuff. I would go to these goth nights and it would be the same old 80s playlist that I would just hear every time I would go. And I'm just like, there's so much new cool music that you guys are missing out on. And I wasn't judging anybody for listening to those 80s stuff because I still love that stuff too. Like I play even original 80s tracks sometimes on my night. I try to find a remix if I can, but a cool remix. But I will even play the originals if I love them enough. I'll play them, and I still do that. And I even play it so that kids can find out about that stuff. But I like for the goth elders, to also find out about new music, because there's so much new music that they could be embracing and really enjoying. That's just as good as the stuff that they want to hear over and over and over and over again. Like every weekend, it's just the same playlist. So for me,
yeah.
that was another reason why I walked away from it because I just wasn't about that. I want the new sound. I want to hear the new stuff. I want to hear the new groups. I want, now is now. Nostalgia is great and I love it, but I want to hear the new sounds. I want to hear the new groups, the new music that's coming out because that's the future, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create something great now and something great in the future, not just reminiscing on our childhood, teenage years, and what is not there anymore.
For sure. I mean, I do think it's important to, rehash some of the old stuff because, you know,
Absolutely,
um, that is where the history of the music is, and
absolutely.
got to carry it on to new audiences too who didn't experience it the first time. But yeah, I mean, I do agree. I don't want to hear the same. I don't want to hear this corrosion at every goth night. At this point, it's like,
I don't think I played one in a long time, but I do play like. But I will throw down. I have a remix that of Alice that I play a lot. We
Mhm.
got some 6 Feet Under anthems that I play like almost every time because it's just
uh,
people love it, and I love it too. Like that, I'll play that. I play,
you
I'll
play
play a variety
Light
of tricks.
Asylum, but
Yeah, Light Asylum, that Pablo Bazzi remix. That's the one. That's the
yeah.
one that I play all the time. See, I play a remix. I don't really play. I played the original a couple of times, but I think that remix just gave it a whole new
Well,
lease
well,
of life.
Pablo Bazzi just like, you know, elevates everything to like just like a dance banger,
Exactly.
basically. So yeah, that makes
Exactly.
sense.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the one. That's definitely a 6 Feet Under anthem, I'd say. And
Hmm.
I play that probably almost every time. There's gone a couple of times I haven't played it. I've got, but it's just such it's a crowd pleaser and it pleases me. So I like to play it. Like those are the kind of tracks I'll throw back and play. Like I'll play stuff that's, even, like from the 80s. Like I have a few Cure tracks I love to play. I'll play stuff. I play a lot of throwback tracks just because I want people to know about it. And it, like you said, it is our history. But I'd say the
Hmm.
majority of the music we play at 6 Feet Under is newer stuff,
Yeah.
within the last 10
Mhm.
years.
Yeah, I think it's important to, support artists that are active now, that are in some cases even trying to make a living from music and stuff. So,
Exactly.
yeah, just share what's fresh and, moving the scene forward into different areas. Um,
Yeah. 100%.
but Cool. So, okay, let's dial it back a little bit. So you got into like a bunch of like rave techno like stuff in the sort of like mid 90s, right?
Yeah.
So let's do a summary of then to now musically. How did that evolution get to where you are right now?
Well, I started playing, like I said, I was playing a lot of heavy like hard techno, really hard techno.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. That's what I was, I was getting booked. I was touring. I was traveling and playing that stuff overseas a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I had residencies over in Israel just playing, trance and techno. That's what I was playing. Uh, but the underground stuff, not mainstream EDM stuff. I no, that, I'm not about the
Which
EDM sound or any of
which
the EDM stuff.
hadn't really become what it is, today at that point. I mean,
Yeah.
that's sort of like still in the fledgling years of some of those genres, right? It
Yeah.
hadn't become ultra commercialized yet in general, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. It hadn't become commercialized. That's right. It was still underground. It was underground music when I was doing that.
Hmm.
So uh, I progressed to that. I was overseas for a while, but then I was starting to I just was getting back into the darker sounds again. And I had an experience where my father passed away. I took care of him for a couple of years of his life. I had to take care of him at the end of his life. So I had
Hmm.
stepped away from everything for a couple of years. And then around 2014, I started getting back into the listening to a lot of the older stuff that I liked a lot. I was kind of having like a renaissance for myself, I guess. I just like, okay, I want to get back to my roots. I want to back to it. It's about the music. It's not about, just going to a party and a bunch of people worshiping the DJ and all that kind of stuff. That wasn't what it
Yeah.
was about. I worshiped the music. So that's what it was about for me. And I just felt like I didn't want that anymore. Just I would go to a gig and I would DJ and everybody be staring at me and not even dancing. And that for me was like, that was like a real kind of like a wake up, waking up kind of out of a dream kind of experience for me. I went back and because after I'd been helping my father, I went back and started doing some techno shows and events like that. And I was just like, man, this is not it. So I was reminiscing a lot about the old days when people would just come to dance for the music. Um, and I kind of felt like that's how it was in those early club times. It was about the songs and the anthems. It was about the music. So that's what I started doing again I got back into the goth scene and started going to a lot of I was already in the goth scene, but I'm just saying I started going to the goth nights again.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and just seeing what people were doing. And so I was like, okay, this is where it's at for me. This is where it's always been. This sound, this vibe, this energy. And I started going to a lot of Rob Tristan's nights, which he was doing a thing called Sour Times at the time. That was the first night at Stacey was Sour Times. It was called. He did it on a Tuesday, I think, back then. So I just started going there to listen to music. And there was not a lot of people that went. It was but it was so cool to chill. And that was the club actually, which is a whole nother story, which was called Sanctum before it was called Stacey's. And I was the original resident DJ there as well on the weekends. And I played a lot of techno and trance, and even even the Goa stuff, and even a lot of high energy stuff, because it was like a gay bar at the time. But I was mixing all that stuff together. A lot of old like disco high energy stuff. This was around 2009. But even before that, I came back. What I did was, even before my father passed away, there were times throughout my career that I would go back and forth, and I came back to after being in Israel. I did the New Year, the millennium, 2000, New Year's 2000. I did the millennium there in Israel. I was living there, and I did a club called Bliss. I did the millennium 2000 show there. And then my father got sick, so I came back to Phoenix, and that was around 2001. I started doing a lot of the clubs in Scottsdale, just playing techno and stuff. And then Steven opened up this club, which, like I told you, it was the world. And then he transformed it into Palazzo, but the night was called Transylvania. And he had created this whole thing, how he wanted to start having this gothic trance night. And that was what he wanted to bring, those two kind of worlds together. So he started doing this night called Transylvania. And I was the original resident DJ there. That's when he hired me to be the DJ for that. And I did that for the first year. So that's when I had got heavily into that kind of the trancier aspect of the goth industrial scene, like V&V Nation, all those kind of bands, yeah. So I started playing that stuff there. And we were packed every weekend. There would be like 400 or more people every Friday.
Nice.
It was an amazing night. Yeah, so that was the first incarnation of it. It was called Transylvania. And then that died out. Then I left because I got an offer to do a residency in Germany at Club Vertigo, and then another residency in Israel at a club called Elizabeth. And also Allenby 58, which is where they did the first Global Underground. I don't know if you know that series, the Global Underground series. Anyway, they did the first.
I don't think so.
There, yeah. Anyway, Tony DeVete did that, he was a great, amazing DJ from Trade, which was an amazing gay bar in London. But they did the first event there. So I left to go do those. And that's when Rob and these other guys took over doing Transylvania. Rob Tristan, and I think it was Dan and someone else. Anyway, they took over that and I left. But then, so I went over there for a few years. I came back, started doing some events, in Scottsdale at a place called E4. It was like techno stuff I was doing there. And then after that, I just, that whole 2008, I don't know if you remember the whole 2008 crash happened. The clubs kind of all died out when that happened. Things got really heavy for people. People weren't going out a lot. A lot of those clubs died. At that time. So I just stopped doing anything altogether with that. And then that's when my father got really sick. I took care of him. So then like in 2014, after he passed away, I started going back out again to the goth nights. And that's when I discovered Rob's Night, which was Sour Times. Addiction, also this club, they were doing it at the time they were doing it at, what was the name of that place? Twisted Peacock was also a gay bar, and they were doing a night there called Addiction. Doing that, I think they were doing it once a month still. So I'd go to those nights too, and they're playing all that stuff, that I love so much, all the older kind of. But they were playing also some new stuff from new sounds that were coming out, like Ladytron and a bunch of these different bands. I got inspired by that a lot, and I just said, this is what I want to do. This is the sound I want to be involved with again. So I just started doing some, I started doing my own nights, doing a lot of events. I was still playing in the techno scene a lot, just, pay the bills. And so, and then at that time I was producing a lot too, I doing a lot of ghost production and just mixing and that kind of stuff. So, but then I got back into it heavy. And so like 2016 is when I really started heavily doing events again. Industrial scene. And then it just went from there. And then I didn't start 6 Feet Under until I started that with Xander and a couple other friends in 2021, right after COVID. Because I was still doing a lot of stuff. I was doing other events, like, I was one of the residents at Lilith with Rob. He would have all of us. He had like 4 different rotating residents every month. So we'd all play there like once a month. Then I started doing some other things, some other events that I was doing, goth events, started to bring some bands again with Tondra. Then Tondra and I started doing, which is Reeded X. We started doing the
Nightwave. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We started doing Nightwave radio in 2016 or 2016. So we started doing that on KWSS FM radio station, and we get like 3,000 listeners every Sunday. So that was awesome. So that's what really got.
That's good. That's good for radio. Is that like a major radio station or something?
No, it's like it's an independent radio station here, but they had lots of listeners.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. So
is it on the FM dial or just like an internet thing?
Yeah, it's on the FM dial.
It's on the FM dial. Okay.
Yeah. So we started doing that. And then I was just like, that's when I started finding all this music, discovering all this music, like Boy Harsher and all these bands. And like, I remember Boy Harsher came here, and Tondra and myself and a bunch of other friends, we went there, and there was like 30 people in the room. No one even knew who they were. And that was back in like 2017 or 2018. No one even knew who they were. They were an underground band, and they played in the warehouse district over in South Phoenix. And we saw them there, and then we interviewed them on the radio show for Nightwave. But yeah, Tana and I were doing Nightwave, and we did it for many years. And then I got too busy, so I couldn't really do it with her anymore. So she started doing it by herself for a while, because I was just busy with doing music production and studio engineer stuff, which is my day job. So that's just what I was doing. So
We'll
So
talk a little bit more about that later.
I was super busy with that. Yeah, I was
We're still on question number one.
yeah, right. There's a lot of history here, honey. A lot of history.
Yeah, I told you that it was going to go by fast, though. You
Yeah.
didn't believe me.
Yeah, right. You weren't kidding.
Uh,
Yeah, so we did Nightwave, and that's what kind of inspired me to like really get back into just throwing shows again and wanting to bring bands. And I was inspired. The music was fresh, and things felt fresh again to me. They felt exciting, and I needed something in my life at that time because I'd been through a rough time with my father passing away,
uh-huh.
and relationship and other stuff going on. So it was cool that Tanner and I were able to start the Nightwave show and do some really cool stuff with that. And then I just started, doing events with.
So you were a founder of that radio show? You started
Yeah,
it with the person who hosts it now?
we founded it. Yeah, her
Oh,
and I
okay.
together. Me and Tandra
Yeah, because
founded
I
it.
noticed that sometimes you do like co-promote events
Yeah,
with them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We do. Her and I have been great friends for years.
Mm.
She was actually the door girl back at Transylvania way back in the day in
Oh,
2002.
wow. All right. Yeah.
She
Going way
was
back
there.
then.
But I knew her even before that. I mean, we've been friends
Mm.
for many years. She's a great friend of mine, and she's a great DJ and just a great individual. So, yeah, but she lives up in Prescott now, so we don't see each other as much as we used to anymore. So, yeah. So, I just that was inspired me to start doing shows again. So I started bringing bands. We even did some Nightwave stuff back then. We brought Haunt and Box and the Twins. God, so many different bands we brought out back then. I started bringing Contravoid again. That was back in 2018 and 19. Just so many bands. I can't even think of them all right now. Just like I got inspired again and started having all these bands come out and play. I'm just trying to think of all the shows I did back then, but pre-COVID, it was right before the COVID time. But then I moved to LA because I was doing a bunch of production stuff out there. I moved there in 2019, and then 2020 COVID hit, so that kind of killed everything. And then I came back because I just didn't want to be in LA because no one wanted to meet in the studios in person anymore. So I was getting files online anyway. So I'm like, well, what's the point of living in LA when I'm spending $2,500 on a 1-bedroom apartment? I can go back and have a house in Phoenix again and live nice and just ride this out. So that's what I did. I moved back during COVID times, actually in the summer of 2020. That's when I got back here from LA, and then in 2021 is when Rob had to go. He had to take a teaching job up in Flagstaff, so he couldn't do the Lilith night anymore. So he turned that over to myself and Xander and a couple of the other resident DJs at the time. And so we started, and that's when I brought back the 6 Feet Under name.
Which you had previously mentioned that you had used it before. What was its original
way back
inception?
Just back in the day in the 80s, a bunch of people were using it, and Chris Flores used it as well. Chris was really cool DJ. Like Chris Flores is one of the godfathers of the Phoenix scene, and even in LA, he did a lot of shows out in LA too. He's an underground DJ. He did techno, house, everything, and he also was into industrial stuff and all that stuff. So there was a bunch of us back then in the 80s that were into that sound, like Randall, who I spoke about earlier, was my partner, and we threw those underground sound parties, and I worked with him quite substantially back then. But then he moved more to the indie grungier side of things with his events and his shows. When he opened Atomic Cafe, he would still play a lot of cool music, but he leaned more towards that side. And then he opened up another one.
Not a grunge fan.
Yeah. I like it, but I just wasn't, I mean, in Israel, it's funny because I worked at a club in Israel called Impulse, and it was an old army barracks that they turned into a nightclub, an older underground army barracks they turned into a nightclub. It was huge. It was like, held like 1,000 people. It was insane. And I broke that record there. The Smells Like Teen Spirit. I was the first one to play that in Tel Aviv in Israel.
Interesting. Okay.
That's crazy. So anyway, so he started doing all that. So we we weren't doing events together obviously anymore. And then he passed away from suicide. But there's a lot of it's still a very, 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 very gray area around his death. So that was kind of traumatic for me as well. So
for sure.
Yeah, that happened when he was in Austin. So I don't know it's very, very sketchy, and the details are very hazy.
Hmm. I
No
see.
definitive answer about any of it. But anyway, it was ruled a suicide. So, which
Okay.
didn't make sense to me because I knew Randall very well. So it still doesn't make sense to me to this day. But whatever.
Right.
Um, but anyway, we had parted ways anyway. I mean, we're still friends, but we weren't doing events together anymore at that time. But a lot of us back then, that's why I'm saying there's just a lot of legendary DJs that like from that time that deserve a lot of credit that people don't even know about from the goth scene, and they don't even get like any, they're just forgotten, which is kind of sad.
Hmm.
So that's why I brought back 6 Feet Under, because it has a legacy.
Pre-internet scene, I guess.
Yes,
I think it's
exactly.
easier to build a
Pre-internet.
traceable legacy now, because you can just put
Yes,
everything online.
100%. Yeah.
It's my
So
strategy anyway.
yeah, no,
Put
absolutely. And
hundreds of
so,
mixes online. Hopefully they'll stay up there.
yeah, exactly. For all eternity, right?
Well, one would
Um,
hope, but we'll see.
yeah, right. I know it's tough now with all this digital age because you want to hold on to things. I think that's cool. Why that like all the vinyl stuff's come back now, and people are really into collecting again because having that
Physical
hard,
formats, yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
exactly, having that hard
digital
copies
formats,
takes me
yeah.
back,
It's not
takes
not
me back.
tangible.
But I was happy, to be honest, because I used to lug around, two record cases all over everywhere,
Hmm.
and that was tough. Just lugging those crates around was like,
Oh yeah, I used to play vinyl only sets, so I know the hustle of like the
oh my
case
god,
of records and
yeah.
yeah.
And
I
I
mean,
lost,
I would always bring way more than I needed to, and I would do like 4 hour sets or whatever, So yeah, just
yeah,
bringing like 150 records along with me.
yeah, totally. That's how it was. And like you brought what you thought was the gold. I
Hmm.
lost a case. I lost a really good case when I was traveling, a flight case, and it had like 80 or 90 classic, really, really super hard to find new beat, acid house, industrial 12-inch records in there, and I lost them forever. And it's been a lot
Yikes.
trying to place those. It's been a lot. So I'm happy that, now I can just fly somewhere with a USB stick and
Hmm.
plug it in with my headphones, do the show, you know. Because like
Right.
I wish I still had all those records. I've got about 75% of them, but there's still
Hmm.
ones I'll never recover because some of them were white labels and some of them were just, very obscure,
Yeah, yeah.
very obscure records that I can't replace. So
Well,
I'm happy.
Discogs does deliver quite a bit, but yeah,
Yeah, totally.
being there.
Some of these, can get pretty expensive.
Hmm.
I mean, the most I'd ever paid for a record was $500.
Oh wow.
But
What was that one?
it was it was a promo only thing that was released. It was it's more of it's like a techno kind of tech house track underground, but it's really Middle Eastern, and it has a very like Middle Eastern vibe to it, kind of Mediterranean sound. It's a track called "It's Been an Ono" by Degree Beach, and it's the Lexicon Avenue remix.
Okay.
And I wanted that track so bad, and it's the only way you could get it. So, and they only pressed like maybe 50 of them or something of the Lexicon Avenue remix. So, I had to pay a lot of money to get that. And I still play it out. I burnt it off and I play it out in the club still to this day.
Hmm.
That's that's how good it is.
Nice.
It's got this, like Ofra Haza kind of female voice on it that's just
Uh-huh.
dark, dark belly dancer kind of,
Yeah, I noticed you playing some tracks like that
Oh,
at
I
the
love
last
that.
event that I saw you in,
I love that.
which is cool. Not a lot of people blending those like Middle
I
Eastern
love
sounds
that.
into goth,
I,
but I mean, there's a lot of similarities, even if you're not looking at it in like a new beat context. Um,
Absolutely. It's those same keys, those minor keys. It's,
mhm.
those Phrygian keys and
Yeah.
those, that is what does it. And just, it's very dark to me. It's very vampiric, I guess I want to say. It has that vibe for me. That's why I like that tribal Mediterranean sound, is because it feels like vampire music to me. So that's why I play
Okay.
that at Vamp a lot, which I have coming up in a couple weeks. So I love that music. I love that tribal kind of
Okay.
Mediterranean.
This is now just a request. How do you feel about making a full mix of music with that vibe?
I would love to do that. That because that's like, I've actually I have an EP coming out like that.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you
Cause
can hear
has
it. you can hear it on my Crimson, and you can hear it on Hexentons. You can hear that
Mhm.
with the female vocals I have on there, and the, which I recorded on Hexentons with a really good friend of mine. She's actually from Ireland, and she did these Gaelic mystical. She's a mystic, very
Uh,
witchy stuff that she recorded those vocals. I recorded her in the studio for that Hexentons track, and
mhm.
that's that vibe. So I'm doing another EP that's going to be only that style, very dark tribal Mediterranean. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So this brings us to the next question. We've arrived at question number two.
Right. Right. Cool.
um,
What's you already?
yes. Do you want to describe your own music and like just like your process and how well not so much the process of making like fit technically, but how did you get into producing your own tracks? We'll start there.
Well, I mean, I've been making music, like my mom used to play the piano, so I was really into, she would play the piano all the time when I was young, growing up, every day. She was an amazing pianist.
Hmm.
So that inspired me to want to play. So I started playing piano when I was like 7. They brought in a teacher for me, and then I just progressed. And I was going to be a concert pianist. That's what I wanted to be.
Okay.
But then synthesizers came along and changed all that.
Yeah.
So when I got into my teen years, you know, when you're a teenager, you know how it goes. So that changed. I probably should have continued to do the the concert pianist, vision and style that I wanted to do. But I just got so into the electronic sound, and I wanted that, and I wanted to be able to do that. So I saved up for my first keyboard, which was a Juno 60. It didn't even have MIDI or anything on it. You had to sync it. You have to use the DIN sync functions on it to sync with drum machines and things like that, because there was no MIDI at the time. Musical instrument digital interface hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So I was playing. So I had like a TR-707 drum machine, and Roland TR-707 drum machine. And then I just brought things as I went. I would buy different things. I had an Alesis keyboard as well. I started just wanting to make music myself, like that sound. And so at the time, you couldn't do what you can do now. There was no computer stuff yet. There was
Yeah.
no you had to have ADATs. You had to have digital audio tape, to record to. So we had these ADATs machines that we record to, or just the 4 tracks or the 8 track cassette recorders that we'd record into, with our music. So yeah, that's what got me into it. I was a pianist for a long time, so I knew how to play the keyboards already. So when I got my hands on synthesizers and I could play all these amazing sounds, it was like, oh, like I don't just have to play a piano sound every day, 4 or 5 hours a day. I can create all these amazing orchestration with all these different sounds, because that's when the samplers started coming in too.
Hmm.
So I did try to do some, physical modeling with synthesis for strings and those kind of sounds, but they still weren't up to par completely. Then the samplers came along, and that's when they started really, oh God, they're sampling up, and it was very even primitive back then. But if you could sample off a string sound, like all those early rave track records and all those things are like sampled off chords, sampled off strings, things like that. So I got into to all that stuff, and it was like a whole new, it was like my mind opened up, and I just jumped into it 100%. So I got away from, just wanting to be like a traditional musician.
Hmm.
And so I want to create, there's so much I can do in the studio. I mean, there's so much I can do with electronic music. I mean, to me, that was like, wow, was epic.
Hmm.
So that's what got me into it. And then from then
And
on,
around what year-ish was that?
geez, that was mid 80s.
Okay.
Early 80s. Yeah, early to mid 80s. I mean, and I would just have these things. I played on them for years. I couldn't record anything or do anything because I just didn't have the money to do that. So I would
Yeah.
just create my own sounds, and I would program into my drum machines, and I'd program the sequences on my little sequencer keyboard, so that you could save a certain amount of sequences and a certain amount of patches. So I would just have fun, basically learning all this stuff. And then I'd say around the late 80s, when it started getting more serious, then I
And you
got
were
like
in a
some
band at some point. You said Dark Shadows
Dark Shadows. Yeah, it
around
was
that time as well. So you were
was a
making
we were
music with
like a little
other
post
people.
punk band, and I was
How
playing
many
the
people were
keyboard.
in that band?
There was there was Brew, who was a singer. Joel was the bass player. Mark Cady was a guitarist, and the drummer was oh god, I can't remember his name. Oh, it's terrible. And
It's
then I was
okay.
on.
It's been a while.
Yeah, and Brew Lajoie, he was a singer, and it was yeah, had a band. And I played for a bunch of punk bands too, Burnt Toast, and just things that
Burnt
bunch of
Toast.
yeah,
That's
it
a
was
fun band name. I like
yeah,
that
yeah,
one.
yeah, we were totally like full on aggro punk, hardcore punk band. So I did a lot of that stuff for a while, and then I just got into the more of the production side of it, making dance tracks, things like that. So that was the progression. That was the next step, obviously. And
So the dance stuff also, like when you were getting into DJing, I assume those styles as well, so more of like 90s vibe.
absolutely, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
all that, the Roland, all the early Roland stuff, the 909, the 808,
hmm
707, all that stuff was, just like it's like gold. And so, I was just producing a lot of music with that stuff. Now I don't even care about any of that stuff, because I wish I would have saved a lot of it, because then I'd be, super, I could sell those things for a lot of money right now.
Yeah.
It's like, I think a 909 right now goes for like 10 grand or something. It's
Oh,
insane.
wow. Okay. Yeah, for
Like
sure.
an original. It's crazy. So, and you can't even, but now you can get any sound you want, so with synthesis and samples, so you don't need any of this gear anymore. It's fun to collect. There's a lot of collectors that collect it. I have a lot of friends that have a lot of this old gear. It's really cool, but
hmm
it's obsolete now. It's dead medium. So,
So, how would you describe the music you're making now?
oh gosh, I think it's like a combination of everything. I don't know. For a while there, I was getting a little, I don't know. People said it's kind of, I guess, dark synth is what I make. I got pigeonholed with the whole EBSM thing,
hmm
electronic body synth music. Um, I don't think I make any. I think I just take from everything and kind of like combine it into my Hex Machine blender, and then it just gets spewed out. Because sometimes I'll be in more of a post-punky mood, sometimes I'll be in more of an EBM mood, sometimes I'll be in more of a techno mood. So like it depends what I'm making with the music, have that vibe that I'm feeling. That's what I'll do. But I like with my remixes, as you well know, I don't really use much of the original artist's material. I just usually take the vocal
Yeah.
or take the
Which
melody.
is fairly common for remixes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah.
Now it's happening more and more. Or I'll take the melody, like I'll take their melody
hmm Yeah.
and I'll just create my own sounds to their melody. Like that's what I did with the Blacklight Odyssey remix.
hmm
Uh, the remix I did for them.
Yeah,
That's what I
that one's
like
great.
to take.
I played
And
it a
if
couple times.
yeah, and if there's a killer vocal, I'll take that vocal and I'll just build everything around it again, because if it's a really good vocal, that's inspiring. All I need is a vocal to inspire me, and I'll take off. Just go crazy with it. So
Yeah, I
that
mean,
I
for
would
sure.
say my
The remix you did for the Strict Tempo compilation album, for example, took the post punk vocals and transformed it into like a hard dance vibe.
yeah, that was a fun
um,
track to work on. I mean, I started working on it by myself for a while, and then I was doing some stuff with my buddy Sam, who's a Sin Eater, and he set in on the studio a couple of times, and I said, "Hey, you want to help me finish this up?" And so he helped
mhm.
me finish it up, just because he's also, you know, getting his feet wet and getting into production. He's going actually to school right now for it, but
Uh-huh.
so yeah, I just for that, I don't know, for that record, yeah, that was fun. That was fun to just make it full on dance, kind of hardcore dance track, I guess.
hmm So I'm gonna break things up a little bit, and so I can take a break for a minute. But we're actually
Okay.
gonna listen to that track right now, and then we're gonna talk about it a little bit more. So
Okay.
we're gonna keep doing like basic interview questions, but I'm gonna start the listening portion of the stream as well. So we're gonna be talking about general music stuff and also talking about these tracks. So that is
All
what's
right.
coming up next, and we're gonna listen to Hex Machine and Scene Eater's remix of Never Wake Up's I Wish. Okay, so that was the Hex Machine featuring Cineator remix of Never Wake Up. Uh, and that was a track called I Wish. And that band are from France, and they have like a more traditional goth post-punk sort of sound. They're a newer band, and it's kind of like a post-punk supergroup of members of other post-punk bands in France. And I was really drawn to it, including the vocalist of a band called Nabta, who I really like. I played tons of their tracks, and I actually did like um, a shared mix with them on Rinse France a couple years ago for Curse's radio show. But anyway, so when they sent me that track, I was like all into it. Um, and I thought it would sound really cool as a dance remix. And I put the call out, and Hex Machine here uh, was interested in doing a remix. So I think he did a really great job transforming it to just like post-punk vocals on like a really hard dance beat, and I think it just works really well. So great job, little clap for
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
But do you want to talk about? I mean, you just talked about it a little bit, but you want to tell us any more about that track and just how you transformed it into like a club banker?
Yeah, well, I just thought, I mean, the vocals are great. She has a great voice, first of all, which is, yeah, like you said, it's got that really that killer like post-punk aesthetic to it. But I just wanted to make it, like which is what I did with most of the stuff I remix. I just think about the dance floor first. I think about, just want to get people to move to it. So I use like an old drum machine sounds. Like I use like a HR-16 Alesis drum machine for that, which was cool. And of course I changed the sounds a lot, but I put a lot of saturation and things on all those sounds. But yeah, I just wanted it to have that kind of older industrial vibe to it. But I also wanted to add those new sounds too. So I believe the synth on that is Serum that I used on that.
Sorry, what was that?
The Serum. I use Serum for the bass
Oh,
line. I think.
okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what I used. I'm trying to remember if that was what I used. Yeah, and just so yeah, and then I wanted to have that kind of that bass line that it's got kicking in it because it's pretty sick. I love that bass line. And
Yeah, I think it's
just all
great.
the way through, to add just those moves and turns. Then I add the synths on top of it as well, which I used Synplant actually for this synth for some of those lead synths on there, which is a great plugin.
Hmm.
And I just run it through my hardware. I run a lot of drum sounds through when I do a lot of remixes, I'll run my drum sounds through some hardware. I'll run it through a Sherman filter bank I have, which kind of beefs up sounds, which is a piece of hardware I have that's really great. It's a little boutique hardware, and it's amazing. Sherman filter bank. Yeah,
Okay.
that's my. Want to make your drum sound killer? Sherman filter bank. There's a lot of
Hmm.
great plugins to do it now too, but just something that kind of warms things up a lot.
What would you say some of your essential gear for making your tracks is?
Well, right now, it's I use Sequential Pro 3. I use that a lot for bass lines.
Hmm.
That great synth, which it's Dave Smith's instruments. But then I use the System 8 with the Roland plugins, which is great because I can
Hmm.
have all those old plugins that I was telling you about, or all those old synths that I wish I still had. That
Yeah.
I so I have all those synths: the Juno 60, 106, the 101, which is one of my favorite synths of all time.
Hmm.
And the plugins now sound insane. They're so good now you can't really tell the difference between a plugin or hardware anymore. You can't. And people that say they can are yeah, that's not true. They've done tons.
If you're using the right ones, anyway.
They've done tons of ear testing on these guys, and most of the time they can't figure out what's what, and
Mm.
that's true. The hardware sound, the plug-in sound as good as the hardware now, and they're all getting pretty expensive now too, so they better sound as good as the hardware.
Yeah.
So I use a combination of both. I use a combination of hardware and software. And
Cool.
for that, I used Ableton. I used Ableton actually I mixed it down in Ableton and then mastered it in Logic.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I mixed it. I did all the creation.
So we didn't really talk about this too much, but
Yeah.
sorry, what?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say we didn't talk about this too much, but you're also a mastering engineer by day.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk for a minute about like what you do with that? What kind of artists you work with, or?
Yeah. Well, I work with straight across the board, everybody from, pop music, country, hip hop,
Mhm.
R&B, techno, trance, house. I produce everybody. I do a lot of production work as well for people. I do
Yeah.
ghost producing as well, where I have
Mm.
to sign NDAs sometimes.
Yeah.
I can't talk about it, but
Yeah, sure.
I have that, and then I do for fun. I do a lot of the dark wave and post punk things too. I'll mix out and master them. I did the new. I did tassels. I did a couple of the last two tassel albums. I mixed and mastered those. They
Okay,
did
yeah.
on that, but I mixed and mastered it for them.
Hmm.
Which those albums sound great. They're killer. I mix and master for just a ton of people. I can't really. It's so many. A lot of techno guys that I produce for as well. So I do a lot of production work, but that's what I do today: mixing and mastering, and then production work as well. And I teach as well. So
What do you teach?
I teach music production as well.
Oh, okay. Is
Music
that
theory.
is
Music
that like
theory.
an online class sort of deal, or?
Oh, it's one-on-one.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. So I teach people I teach music theory as well. So I teach music theory. I teach music production. And I was giving piano lessons, but I don't do that anymore. It's just time consuming for me. So
Hmm. Okay. So
but
we're getting.
I've got my
Sorry.
fingers in a lot of hats.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So we're actually going to listen to the track that you made for my compilation album next, and it's called Damaged.
Oh yeah, I love that one.
right, so that was the track Damaged from the new Strict Tempo compilation album, which is out now on Bandcamp and soon to be on streaming services. That's a whole other, we could do a whole episode on that struggle, but it will be up there soon. I
Right.
promise. Um, so do you want to talk a little bit about this track, Damaged?
Yeah. Well, with Damage, I mean, that's basically, to me, that's like a kind of like it's just a full on dance floor banger, you know. There's no vocals, and I just wanted to make it, I think it does have my old techno influence in there, as well as, you know, some of the psytrance, the go psytrance vibe to it, and the new beat sound. So I kind of like took all three of those and meshed them all together. You know, that was the sound that I wanted for that track. And whenever I play that track out in the club, it just hits hard. People always ask me what it is. What's that track? What's that
You're
track?
like,
You know?
it's me, actually.
Well, I was playing it for a long time before it was released. I was playing it in the clubs, and
Yeah.
people would always ask me, "What's that track? What's that track?" You know, and then I'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's one of mine. It's not out yet. It's not released. I'm gonna release it. Just haven't really figured out how to release it or when I'm gonna release it." And then you asked me, you know, for some tracks, and I've been wanting to get that out, and I was actually gonna set on it for a little bit and make a few other tracks that were in kind of the same vein, and then put it out as an EP. But then when you said you were looking for, you know, some tracks, I'm like, oh, right, that's so I sent it to you and you liked it. So yeah.
That is what happened there.
Yeah.
And it's the second contribution. I think you're the only person on the whole album that has two contributions to it. So
Yeah.
bravo.
Yeah. Remix and original. All
Well,
right.
yeah, I mean you've appeared three times already, and we're only on like the second release, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You could say I'm a fan. All right.
Hopefully a long fruitful arrangement.
I hope so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm definitely planning to do like a whole. I'm gonna do like basically the now series of like dark alternative electronic music with the compilations,
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
just never
Awesome.
ending. We're gonna
Yeah.
have compilation number 20,
All right.
eventually.
I love that. I
But I'd
love.
love to do maybe like two a year or something.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
but
That's great. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
I'm
a
planning to keep them going for sure. And two other
yeah.
releases too. But
Mm.
I like the comps because it gives me a chance to display the variety that's involved with
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
brand,
Yeah. No, yeah,
the
because there's
different music that I like.
so many colors in the rainbow for what we do. So
For sure. Um, so do you want to talk a little bit about some of the general themes of your music? Like what do you like to write songs about? So okay, there are some of your songs that have vocals in them, and you do the vocals usually, and I think you sometimes also have guest vocals.
yep.
Um,
Yeah. Guest vocals quite a bit actually. So
but in terms of like themes of your music, what would you say you gravitate towards if there are
well,
themes?
kind of like the kind of the whole mysticism occult thing, I guess. You know, that's
Mhm.
my vibe.
I did gather that much. Yeah, there seemed to be a reappearance of warlocks and witches.
Yes, absolutely. That's my vibe. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And so for me, that's kind of like the energy and vibe I like to bring to what I do. I just feel like, you know, it's I don't know. I've always been into that kind of I've always been into that, you know. I guess what you would call mystic, you know, the mystic kind of arts, and not
Mhm.
really. I don't know if the occult is what you call it. I mean, I guess you could call it that. I don't know. I'm not. I'm not like a practicing, warlock or anything like that. But I do feel
Okay.
those energies, and I have experienced a lot of those energies, and I've been around people that are very experienced in those kind of, you know, yeah. So that's influenced my music
Mystic
heavily.
arts, basically.
Yes, yeah, exactly, and that's influenced my
Mm.
music pretty. So like with the Hexentown EP, that one, you know, that was really, um, that's what that whole thing is about. But I also bring in, I mean, to me, I like to bring in the energy of where I live, you know, here in the desert. because you never think that the desert would be a hot spot for goths, but it is. That's the
Yeah.
crazy thing. We have probably one of the biggest goth industrial scenes in the United States.
Yeah, for sure. I have
And
noticed that.
yeah, which is great. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. So a lot of people are really into it. A lot of the younger generations really getting into it, which is what I love so much. You
Hmm.
know, we've got
Yeah,
that's
I
what's so
definitely see a lot of young people coming
yeah,
out, and that's great.
yeah. That's what's so great about our events. We have the whole age range. We have the elder goths, we have the middle-aged people, we have the young baby bats, we call them. We've got
Hmm.
everybody, because there's one thing I can't stand and that's ageism. I have a real disdain for it.
Hmm.
So if I, so that's another thing we bring to our events. I would say it's a cultural vibe, and everyone is welcome. And
Yeah.
I'm not about a bunch of 21-year-olds. I mean, that's another reason why I left the techno scene, to be honest. I kept playing a bunch of 21-year-olds every night is not it's not the deal for me. So
Yeah.
uh, I kind of got bored with that. I got tired of it. Just that energy. I wanted like to feel like a more cultural vibe, not just to go out party, get
Hmm.
wasted,
Yeah, for
and
sure. And
pick up and hook up. Just a hookup kind of scene. I didn't want that. I wanted to feel a cultural, vibe and lifestyle. I mean, that's what we promote.
yeah, for sure. I definitely get that vibe from your event. Um, and I think the goth scene is interesting because it's one of the scenes with like kind of like the older followings, you know. Whereas if you look at some of the other genres that people are going out for, um, they might have more of a, very young, like sort of college age base, because
Right.
that's, the bulk of people that like to, I mean, go out in general, just statistically, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um,
It's true.
but yeah, I think that it's kind of rare in the goth industrial scene because, it's been a minute since a lot of this music came out and did experience its first, wave of interest. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
yeah.
And that's one of the things so with my music too, like I'm making music that's about the cultural vibe. I'm not really making music that's like just for people to raise their hands and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I wouldn't say that that's why I make my music. I first of all don't make my music to get worshipped, because I'm not into DJ worship either. That's like a thing that I'm just like, I'm pretty much anti that.
Yeah.
So I'm about the dance floor and people having fun and enjoying themselves. And if I get a little love here and there for what I do, that's great. I mean, I appreciate it.
Yeah, recognition is important too,
Yeah,
but
yeah, but I'm not standing up there,
it can be
like,
a big ego fest though. No, I know
yeah, I'm not
exactly
up
what you
there
mean.
like Tiesto or David Guetta or one
Oh,
of these,
oh, I
you know.
hate what you called EDM hands earlier.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
exactly. Oh
my
man, like if I see a DJ,
oh
if I see
God,
a DJ
so
do that,
cringy.
yeah, I get turned off, and like I book DJs based on their energy and who they are, not just what they play.
Hmm.
So if their vibe doesn't mix with what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to create with 6 Feet Under, which is about the dance floor and about the culture and about the environment, it's not just about, hey, look at me, I'm special, I'm playing this and doing that. I don't want that. That's not. I don't want that EDM vibe, and I don't want it. I don't want it. I'm very much about creating an atmosphere that's about that dark aesthetic that we have, but it's also, I want it to be sexy. I want it to be welcoming. I want it to be a place that nurtures self-expression, and that's what we do. So with 6 Feet Under. So I don't think that I'm not about just like making DJs famous. It's not. No.
Yeah, or DJs who think they're famous.
Yeah, well, that's probably the latter. Yeah,
More like in the
that's what
scene.
it
Yeah.
comes down to, because they think, oh, I get to DJ, I'm this, I'm that, which is cool. Look, I don't have a problem with people owning their craft and loving what they do. I think that's great. But when it's all about you and and you think you're a rock star and all that crap, I don't know. It's not what it's about. It's not what it's
Mhm.
about. It's about, yeah, no, it's not it. So,
Yeah, and I
so
think you're
sorry,
succeeding at
sorry to go
building like a
preaching
genuine
about
community there,
yeah,
and I definitely see all the stuff that you're talking about in action, so
yeah, yeah,
bravo.
because yeah, and and I've gotten a lot
But
of
not too
flack.
much bravo.
Gotten a lot of, yeah, thank you. I've gotten a lot of flack for it, to be honest. Gotten a lot of flack for keeping things a certain way that I want it to be.
I think it's,
'Cause-
yeah, it's totally, it's good to have a vision and, work
yeah,
to make it
yeah, like
uh
just because
that
someone's a
way.
DJ, yeah, and just because someone's a DJ in the goth scene doesn't mean I'm going to book them for my night. I mean, that's not what this is about. It's like,
Hmm.
what are you going to bring to the table? What are you going to offer to the community? What are you going
Yeah,
to offer? What we're doing here? This isn't about you. This isn't about. That's not what it's about.
for
And I
sure.
find, I find that more with the, to be honest, with the men DJs than I do the women DJs. But I've still even gotten
Hmm.
it from some of the women DJs, that ego, and I just don't want the artist ego. I
Well,
don't.
I think that's partially because it draws what a lot of people to DJing. They want that attention. They
Yeah,
see it as like an easy way
yeah,
to like
right.
be put in the
That's why a lot
spotlight,
of them do it.
without having to make the tracks or, be a musician. Which I mean, I say that in a way that's like, that's maybe how they're viewing it. I view, DJing as like a skilled practice and definitely a musical skill. I don't want
Absolutely.
to undermine that. I mean, I would be like dissing myself if I were.
Right.
But
Well, yeah.
I do think some people view it as, you're a person version of a Spotify playlist, and they're like, oh, I think I can do that. But they're underestimating, and they're not realizing the full art of being a DJ. So I think
Yeah.
it's these people that come in with just like in it for themselves and not really in it for the art and for,
Right.
representing a musical vision. That's where the problem
100%.
comes in.
100%. And nowadays, I mean, the reality is anybody can get up there and play their Spotify playlist, and like,
Hmm.
take top 20 darkwave or whatever they find on Spotify and throw it into a playlist. And then all of a sudden I'm a DJ and they can press the sync button and sync everything up and not have to, but hey, I started out as a real DJ. So I still have a little bit of that attitude. I have the attitude, you should work for it. You should work hard in your craft. And if you call yourself a DJ, maybe you should call yourself a selector and not a DJ. So because there's two things going on. There's nothing wrong with the selector. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Hmm.
That's great. People want to get up and
I
just
mean,
select music all night, then they can do that.
sharing underground music is a good
Right.
thing, no matter how
Exactly.
you slice it.
Exactly. Exactly. But calling yourself a DJ, maybe not so much. Maybe you got to work a little bit harder to be able to call yourself that name. Maybe you
Yeah,
got to know
I think
program
it has
music.
been a bit
What it,
cheapened.
right. Because what it really comes down to is knowing how to program a set. Like for instance, myself, when I go in to play a 6 feet under night, I do not go in with a playlist,
Hmm.
which I know I'm one of the rarer few, but I go in there with an idea of what I want to do. But I have so many playlists and I have so much great music that I read the crowd and I read the vibe and I read the energy. And then because I mix live, I don't use the sync functions or any of that stuff, which I'm not against that.
Hmm.
That's great. People need to use that. That's fine. But I like to be able to just change. If I need to go in this direction, I want to go there. If I need to go in that direction, I want to go there. You know what I mean? Like I want to be able to feel the flow of the crowd too, not just what I want to do. The DJ comes in sometime with a playlist that they're going to play what they want to do, and you're gonna dance to it. You're going to like it or not. And for me, I don't want to be restricted to that. I want to be able to play what I'm reading with the crowd. Like, okay, they're loving this. I'm going to go in this direction, or they're feeling this. I'm going to go, or I'm going to surprise them with this, or maybe, things like that. I don't want to have a playlist where I have to stand up there and like, just, okay, I'm going through my track list and this is what I worked on for 8 hours before I got to the club. And now I'm doing this. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not downing that. I'm just saying for me personally, I want to be able to I want it to be more of an experience because I like remix the tracks live sometimes, I'll jump around between
Hmm.
hotkeys, I'll add loops, I'll add acapellas, I'll do different things. Like for me, it's an interactive experience. It's not just playing tracks back to back. I'm interacting with myself too while I'm interacting with the crowd. So I'm like feeling it. And what do I feel? Like maybe I want to add something I never, and then you get those happy accidents where you get a song that you remix or something that you do live, where you add something on top of it that you never did before. And it sounds so cool. And, you have that experience too. So I like that aspect of DJing, to me, that's like that's DJing. That's real DJing.
Yeah,
So
for
it's
sure.
up there being a selector and selecting songs and playing them back to back to back to back to back, so some people, they get mad at me because I don't book them to DJ at 6 Feet Under, like people that have been DJing here in town for a while. And what they don't understand is like, it's nothing against them personally. And I like a lot of these people even, but it's just that they're not really, maybe they don't, you know, they don't fit the night maybe, you know, or they don't fit the ethos of what I'm trying to do, the aesthetic of what I'm trying to do. You know, they're not maybe on brand for what I do.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's why there's other goth nights here. That's why there's an 80s goth night. That's why there's a more of a pop thing that happens, you know. But
Sure.
for what I do, I just like to have, I like to book people. I like to book DJs that are in sync and in the sound and in the vibe of what we do. So that's what we do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we're gonna listen to another one of your tracks now. So we were talking about the like mystic influence of some of the themes here, and so I thought it would be nice to play the track Warlock next.
Oh,
So
sweet.
we're gonna listen to that one now.
He comes in the night, the dark stranger. He comes in the night, Warlock. He comes in the
right. So that was the track Warlock from Hex Machine. Here we have here, if you're just tuning in, we're doing a little interview and listening party with Hex Machine from Phoenix, Arizona, who runs the Great Night 6 Feet Under as well. And we just heard the track Warlock from him. And that was released like a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, yeah. It was 2022. Yeah, that's a great track because I don't know that it is, I guess, considered EBSM. But I think the leads in that a lot are very trancey, and that goes back to my even my trance, my darker trance kind of sound. I like to add that a lot to my stuff. You'll notice that too on the Hex and Tons EP and even on the Crimson EP. Like I do have a lot of trancier influences in there because that's what I feel like. Even doing the desert parties here, for many years, the desert raves and all those things, it's like that has influenced me. That has created a lot of the theme that goes into my music. So and that kind of rituals, because a lot of these raves have turned into outright rituals that I've played at. They've been very like people are like gone to another world, so it's been very cool to have that experience. So that's why
when you say like desert rave, are you talking about kind of like, I mean, when I think of that as Burning Man, but clearly that's not what we're talking about here, much smaller scale.
Yeah, but Burning Man was influenced by the desert parties here and in California.
Yeah, definitely.
The desert dune parties they did in California, all the desert parties we did here, where we had thousands of people at those parties. I played a lot of those events. So, and I was playing, that kind of dark techno and trance stuff. So that, and I would literally see people just for hours and hours. I mean, we'd go till the sun come up, before they busted them all, then they, the authorities did crack down on it. But we had amazing events, and we did so many great parties in the desert here. And so that's what, like, even on my on my Crimson, one of the tracks even is about the desert there, which is because like it's such a cool vibe here, and that's what's so cool. We, desert goths, it's crazy. That's what we have here, because it is kind of
it's dystopian. A thing.
Living in the desert is a little dystopian, Who knows if water's gonna, I think, and we got another 10 years here maybe before our water completely runs out. That's what I think might happen. But
yikes.
So yeah, it's pretty dystopian here if you think about it, those aspects of it. And then we've got this steel concrete, city, Phoenix, which is now the 5th largest city in the United States. Crazy how spread out, and just it's insane how many people live here now. So it's very dystopian here. I think we connected. I think the goths here, we're connected with that. We're connected with that aspect of life.
Right.
Yeah.
So Warlock, it was released as a single, right?
Yeah, just the single. Yeah.
Okay.
It was an inspired track. I was going to put it on one of the EPs, but I just felt like it was its own thing. Because I do feel like a Warlock when I'm DJing. I do feel like I go into that. I feel that space. I feel like I'm in that kind of trance.
Sure.
And Hex Machine means
or casting a spell on the people.
Exactly.
With the music.
Hex Machine is German. Most people don't know it. Hex Machine, which is like spell machine. It's kind of what it means. So he calls me Hex Machine, but it's actually Hex Machine. But I don't care. I mean, I take Hex Machine too, because everybody calls me Hex Machine. No one says Hex Machine. So,
right.
So, but yeah, like that's the aspect. That's in the theme of my name. That's what it's all about. So it's all connected. It's all connected to of what I feel about music. I feel like music does cast spells on us. I feel like all these things, they take us to another world, they take us to another place. So I feel like I'm doing that when I'm DJing. I'm creating that space for people to go to another dimension.
I'd say you are successful with that. So can you tell me a little bit, do you have other like influences for your music beyond like actual music influences, like other elements of art? So like say visual art, film, literature, anything like that impacts what you do or has impacted just like the inspiration for creating?
Oh yeah, well, I'm a huge David Lynch fan, so I guess that might have a little bit of something to do with it. I love all his stuff. I mean, he also makes music. Same with John Carpenter. I'm a huge John Carpenter fan. John Carpenter makes music for all his movies, most of them. And I love his movies, his music. I mean, it's very much in that vein of that dark kind of dystopian, sound that he's done for so many of his movies. So yeah, those movies, all those kind of movies inspire me. I'm inspired also by the vampire aesthetic. I mean, I think that if I could be a vampire, I would. But
Well,
you know,
you never
I
know
love,
when the opportunity might strike.
never know, I might get it right. I mean, it might happen. It might happen. But I love all those movies that deal with that. I'm a huge Anne Rice fan. I read all her books before the movies and all that even came out. So I was very much inspired by her works as well. I think she's a genius, was a genius. So yeah, I love all those movies too, and I love what they did with them. I was worried when they picked Tom Cruise to be Lestat. I was a little concerned, but he pulled it off, which was pretty impressive. You know, because like I know the character from the books, so I was like, Tom Cruise, what?
Wait,
And I know
which movie was
totally
that?
against it. She was totally against it. Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, right. Okay.
They took that after her book. You know, they made a movie. She was
Uh-huh.
totally against it in the beginning, but then she saw the test things and all that, and she was all for it. She even took out an ad about it, like you know, she like a newspaper thing saying how great it was and how great he's doing, what a great job he did for the movie. So
Well, I think Tom Cruise is no stranger to kind of esoteric ideas. He's a
yeah, right.
Scientologist,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Uh, but yeah, I can
Weird
see
one.
how
He's
he
a weird one.
mhm. Maybe not as mainstream as he as it seems on the surface.
No, yeah,
I mean,
right, exactly,
I don't know him personally, obviously.
right.
But
Seems like yeah, totally.
Scientology is on its own.
Yeah, right.
It's over there
It's a
somewhere. Um,
new religion, I guess.
okay, so you say like there's some vampire influence as
Oh
well,
yeah, yeah.
and you know
Honest.
that you
Yeah.
mentioned David Lynch, John Carpenter, all greats.
Yeah. Guillermo del
Uh,
Toro.
mhm.
I mean, I love all that. I can't wait for the new Nosferatu movie that's coming out. I'm gonna
Oh
like
yeah,
can't
for
wait.
sure.
That's like, yeah, number one on the list for Christmas.
Yeah, I love all the old school like silent film horror movies.
Yeah,
I'm always
amazing.
I'm a little bit tentative about seeing the remakes, you know, because I feel like
Yeah, because they ruin
there's
them.
so many Hollywood remakes of like great things that already exist. It's like maybe not necessary,
Exactly.
but
They don't
sometimes
do
yeah,
justice.
a modernized version can be nice.
You know, I also feel, yeah, I feel that way about music too. Like sometimes they'll remix or they'll redo these songs, and if you can't do it better, don't do it. You know, like if you can't do something more like if you can't bring something new to the table, don't ruin it.
For sure.
Yeah.
So we're gonna listen to your EP next. It is the Hexentons
Ooh, yeah.
EP. And so, okay, I looked this up. The witch dance or witches dance is what Hexentons means. Do you want to tell us a little bit before we listen to that? What
Yeah.
what what was that inspiration?
Well, the inspiration for that was just that, in itself. I love all the themes of that, the witch, the witches, the tribal aspect of that, and even the women being in the forest, the witchy vibe, and what they create out there. I love all that. I love those movies. Actually, that's why I can't wait to see the Roger Agers movie, because I
Sorry,
love
which
that.
ones?
Did you see that movie, The Witch? Did you ever see that movie, The Witch?
The Witch?
Yeah. Did you see that
It
movie?
is when was that released?
Oh God, let's see. It
Is it
was
the 2015? That one?
2015. Yeah. So
I did
that
not
movie,
see that.
yeah, that movie had some. That's Robert Edgers too, who's doing the new Nosferatu.
Oh,
So
really? Okay.
yes, and so that movie inspired that track a lot. Um,
Mm,
and that's it. And so the vocal on that track is Tanya O'Connor. She's Irish.
okay.
She recorded her in the studio. She came into the studio and we had great sessions together. That was like in 2019, I guess. We had amazing sessions. She's got a beautiful voice. She's a spiritual individual, mystic. She speaks Gaelic.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are Gaelic verses she's speaking on Hexentons. And so I recorded her with all that, put a lot of heavy reverb on it because I just wanted that atmosphere of being out in that forest with that energy. So on her vocal, there's a lot of reverb, on the different things she's saying. which is, I'm not going to spill the beans on that. Everybody will have to, take from it what they take from it. But those lyrics do mean something, and they are, yeah. So she's incredible. I've got a few other things coming out with her voice on it as well. Those won't be out for a few months though, but they're incredible. And she's just amazing. She does a lot of vibration with sound. She does a lot of healing with sound. And so she's great. She's on Instagram. She's one of my
Got
friends
those
on
like
Instagram.
sound bowls. You know what I'm talking
Yes,
about?
that stuff. Yes. So,
Those are cool.
got her little witchy vibe going on. So,
Mhm.
that's what I wanted to use for the music I make. I want it to be very real and very, very much about what I'm trying to create. So, I
Mhm.
mean, I grab a bunch of samples and throw them on there, and I want it to be organic, and I want it to be the real deal. So, her
So
voice, I brought her into the studio, and it was just like gold. I have so many golden takes of her voice. So yeah.
options, nice. Okay, so I Googled hexentons because I wanted to know, well, what it meant. And although I guess it's the kind of derivative, you can kind of tell what it means from looking at it. But I found a bunch of results in reference to a specific expressionist dance by Mary Wigman in like 1929. Do you know anything about that?
No, but I've read all those things too. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I,
I was curious if that was like what it was named after, but I guess not.
no,
Just
no.
just the general concept of a witch's dance. All right.
Yes.
Cool, cool. All right. Well, we're gonna listen to that first track, which is called, well, it's called Hexentons, and it features Tanya O'Connor. Okay, so that was the track Hexentons from, well, the Hexentons EP. And we've got Hex Machine here talking to us about his music right now. So that's what's happening. And thanks for watching. So Hex Machine, we talked a little bit about that track already, about the guest vocalist you had in studio, just about the concept of the witch's dance. Do you have anything else you want to tell us about it?
No, not really. Just that, yeah.
Yeah, we kind of did that ahead of time.
Yeah, it's the whole thing about it.
Okay. Well, I will ask you something else then. Before we listen to the next track from this EP, do you want to talk a little bit about your songwriting process and what's that's like in general?
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, it varies. Sometimes I always like to have, I always like to feel something before I start making music. I always have to feel some kind of, there has to be a theme. There has to be some kind of energy around my creation. Otherwise, I just go in there and I noodle around and fiddle with, sounds and knobs and stuff, and I don't really have a direction. And I do that sometimes just for experimentation. And just also test out new gear and new plugins, things like that. But when I'm ready to like get serious and like make a track, I always go in with a theme or a vision of what I want that to be. And it has to be connected to something. It's not just, oh, I'm going to make a track. It's got to be connected to a feeling. It's got to be connected to an experience or the aesthetic that I love, And so, and that's why with Hexentons, that's what that kind of was. It was a whole thing about this spiritual, occult vibe connected with the desert and connected with my environment here in Phoenix. Like with Totem's very Native American theme behind it. We have we have a great Native American community here. They come to the events. They're very supportive. They're amazing people.
Yeah.
They're all incredible. I respect them. I have the highest respect for who they are and what they do and what they've added to the community here. So
for sure.
So yeah, I wanted to make a song about that. So that's what Totem is. It's just kind of like an honoring to that aspect of our culture here. And so yeah, that's even the voice on there. It's very, it's still another witchy voice and but it's that vibe. It's coming from that energy. And I'm going to keep that secret of what that voice is and who that voice is and all that. But yeah, it's some things I have to keep secret. Just for my own. I don't want other people to copy me, maybe.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay,
yeah, so but with that's the same kind of vibe I had with Totem, was that kind of energy of expression of that call. It's like it has it has the same kind of feeling. All those songs are connected on that EP. They're all connected.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we're gonna listen to Totem. So that was the second track, Totem. That had a really that was the second track, Totem. Unique vibe to it. Enjoyed that one. I don't think I'd actually listened to this EP before, like this week. So yeah, new discoveries for me as well. And these are available. Oh, whoops! I should have said this earlier. Up on the Hex Machine Bandcamp page. I'll post a link to it in chat. And oh,
Yeah, they can also hear them on all the streaming services too.
Yeah.
They're
For
on
those
those.
of you who don't do the Bandcamp thing, which I
Yeah.
guess is some of you.
Unfortunately,
If you don't, Bandcamp
Yeah.
is a great resource for underground music right now. There's so much
Definitely.
awesome stuff that can be found there. It's really,
Yes,
there's just a wealth of just great music happening there. So
yes.
my little pitch for Bandcamp. You're not checking it out already.
Best
Great
medium.
way to support the artist directly.
Yeah, it's the best one of all of them. It's the best medium that supports the artist. It's the best one.
For sure. I mean, yeah, the streaming services, it's like absolute peanuts compared to, I mean, even on like an underground level, what you could achieve with Bandcamp
Terrible.
in terms of
It's terrible, and unless you're
being
releasing
able
stuff,
to make more music, you know.
and unless you're releasing stuff all the time, you just drop down. You just drop down on Spotify, and you don't even exist. I mean, at one point, I had like 10,000 followers, and now I have like, I don't know, it goes up and down all the time now. I think I had 1,000.
Really?
Yeah, what it lists.
Do you mean like monthly listeners? Or
yeah,
oh,
monthly.
okay. I was like,
Yeah.
that, in terms of followers, that's kind of strange for it to jump down that much.
And listeners, sorry.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
You got to be releasing stuff constantly.
Yeah, you have to constantly, even to compete and even to be like to even be noticed at all. You have to get on all these playlists. There's this whole thing to it now, and it's really, the big three. The big three got.
It's like it's the algorithm that controls everything now.
Yeah, but the big three record labels got into bed with that CEO, and they all, they're all into, that's just what they do. It's terrible. It's terrible for the artists. It's terrible for the artists. Terrible. I hate that I have to use it, but I have to. I'm forced to use Spotify.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's recognized as a necessary evil at this point.
Yeah. We're forced to do it.
So this next track, Color of Spirits, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's on the same vibe. It's a little more Indian, like from India vibe.
Right.
With the vocals. Yeah, and it's just it's connected to the Crimson EP too. It's almost like it's got the same kind of vibe, a little bit of it's Beneath the Shadows. So it's got that same kind of energy. I just wanted it to be really like bouncy, kind of that kind of bouncy dance vibe to it. The happier of the three, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't consider my music to be happy, but that's the happier of the three, I guess, on there, of like just dancing and that
uplifting maybe is the word.
There you go. Yeah, uplifting. A little more uplifting. Yeah, but I've had a lot of people really love that track too and played out quite a bit. But yeah, that's it. I took that vocal, which is a vocal that was recorded, and I chopped it all up. And I used and I loaded it into a sampler, and then I did a lot of arpeggiation on it to try and get those vocals to be chopped up. But they sound like they're not chopped up, but they are chopped up. It's like a weird thing. And I just added a lot of effects to it too, to make it, to kind of glue it together, compress it to glue it together for that line that she has.
Yeah,
it's a cool line. I love that track.
And we're going to listen to it right now. This is Color of Spirits from the Hexentons EP. So that was the third track from the Hexaton's EP, Color of Spirits.
Yeah.
And
It's very another ritualistic track.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have anything else you want to say?
She's calling the spirits. That's what her chant is.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, that's what she's doing. She's calling the spirits to dance.
Literally.
Calling them to dance, calling them to the dance floor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, not like calling them up on the phone, or they're beckoning.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. So up next we have Trauma Bondage, another collaboration with Sin Eater, who you talked a little bit about earlier. Have you done like more collaborations with them?
No, just these two. That was it. Now they're working on their own thing. Like I said, going to school and doing some stuff. But yeah, they wanted to get their teeth, break their teeth in on a couple of productions with me. So we went ahead and did that, which is something that, which is something that I was into doing, and because he's also into the industrial sound pretty heavy. So that song's kind of like a throwback.
I think I saw him at the first 6 Feet Under event that I did. I think he was there.
Yeah, I mean, Sin Eater wrote the lyrics for it, which is about an experience they had, a personal experience, and then I wrote the music for it, pretty much, and then we worked on it together to finish it all off, and which was great. It's kind of an ode to that industrial kind of EBM sound. It's a little bit lower in BPM. I think it's around 116 BPM. Yeah, and so I like that kind of vibe. Still keep it a little sexy, but also hard at the same time. And I used a lot of like FM bass sounds on that, and a lot of techno influences in it too. Like you can hear, like I have a lot of techno sounds that I've got going on there. I actually use a plugin by Rob Papin on that I really like a lot to create a lot of those percussion sounds.
Sorry, by who?
Rob Papin. He's a plugin designer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he designed.
I'll take your word for it.
Some of the plugins that I used on that were designed by him. So
I'm
not gonna which ones, just because
that's fine.
My secrets here and there.
For sure.
But it's great for making. If anybody wants to get a good bundle of plugins, Rob Papin's got some great stuff. So I use that to create a lot of the percussion sounds on that, and I wanted it to kind of have that loopy vibe, but at the same time to have like that EBM feeling. So the bass line's kind of super EBM sounding, but it's also got that. But it's an FM bass, so it's not too grindy or harsh. It's more like on the, I guess, a Schweffelgeld kind of sound, I guess.
Okay, which is a great sound.
Yeah. So I took a little bit of influence from that, which because I love that kind of sound, but at the same time, and then his vocals are their vocals kill. So I loved everything they did for that. It was great. So that's what I really do like doing collaborations, because it brings another flavor to the table for me. I don't get bored working by myself at all, but it's nice to do collaborations because it just takes you to another place you wouldn't normally go on your own. And I think we were able to create a really good dance floor banger with that, which is also, intense. It's intense, and it has a lot to do with, trauma in relationships. But yeah, it's good. I think it came out really, it got charted a lot by a lot of people, which is great. All over.
Like, what do you mean by charted? Like what sort of charts?
DJ list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we're going to listen to that track now. It's called Trauma Bondage. Okay, so that was Trauma Bondage, a collaboration between Hex Machine, who we have here on screen with us, and Sin Eater, also based in Phoenix, Arizona, a budding industrial artist over there. Shout out. Also did some collaboration on the remix that Hex Machine made for the Strict Tempo compilation. The Never Wake Up I Wish remix, which we played a little bit earlier. Yeah, we did. um, but we are going to play another remix that Hex Machine made for Strict Tempo as a label. And those of you who don't know, I did convert my club night slash video podcast situation. It's wearing many hats at this point, into a label a couple months ago, and I released a double album to start off with a bang. And it's a compilation simply called Volume 1. I know, very creative. Um, because I'm planning to be like the now compilation series of dark alternative electronic music, you know.
Yeah,
We just number it. But I'm planning to do a lot of these compilation albums. And I was actually okay, so I was curious about this series because I remember buying those CDs in like the late 90s when I was like a kid. Um and there it was in that era they were like featuring like, you know, really mainstream pop artists like, you know, like your Britney Spears or NSYNC, all of that stuff. Um and I looked at the original releases that now put out, and they were actually putting some like alternative music in there. And that surprised me. I was like, oh wow, I guess popular music has gotten really cringy over time. And it didn't used to be like that.
yeah,
But
right.
they did start releasing those compilations in like the 80s, and it was kind of, I mean, there were some cool tracks in there to begin with. I can't remember exactly what I saw in there that I thought was cool, but there was some stuff. Um like
Cool.
new wave and like synth
Oh,
pop and
nice. Right on.
um anyway, I don't know. Tangent. But anyway, so yeah, we're gonna do a lot more of those compilations, and we're not gonna be there's gonna be no mainstream pop artists. In fact, we're gonna represent the best of the underground. Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
getting silly. I'm
that's
just getting
what's
silly
that.
now. Um, okay, so but we're gonna listen to the con or sorry, we already listened to the compilation tracks from Hex Machine, which was the Never Wake Up I Wish remix and also the original track called Damaged earlier. And now we are going to listen to the third contribution to the Street Tempo label now. And that is the remix from Susie Sabotage called Nazi Goths Fuck Off. And it's a track that I think is really important right now. And I thought, um, you know, I had the idea to remix or to uh, basically gather remixers for it and just turn it into like a dance smash. And I mean, the original is pretty dancey already, but I thought, you know, it really needed sort of like some hard kicks in there and just make it so that it could be, you know, played widespread on dance floors. So I'm glad that Hex Machine was down to do that remix. Do you want to talk about how you made this one a little bit?
Sure. Well, I was really inspired to do this remix also, you know, because of the state of things. So it was great. I think you picked the perfect time to release that track. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I definitely it needed to be released before the election. I made it
and
a few days before,
yeah,
but
it was great. Great. It was great. And
unfortunately, I couldn't save the results all in the
yeah, unfortunately,
the
yeah,
remix
right.
release. Damn it. Um,
Yeah, I wanted to, I don't know, with that mix, I just wanted to completely redo it. That's why I call it the reanimated remix, because I wanted to like just take that vocal and just place it on a full on. Uh, I kind of took a little bit from everywhere. You know, I took a little bit from post punk. I took a little bit from EBM. I took a little bit from techno. Took a little bit from darkwave, and I kind of like put it all together. And that's why I really liked like that. And the techno aspects are that is that very atonal sound I have, the very atonal synth sound. You know, that reminds me a little bit of like the minimal dark warehouse techno scene. And then I took the bass line, which I wanted it to be more EBM, and that's why I have it filtering going through the whole track. It filters in. I have the cutoff filter going in and out to like make it more aggressive at times, and then back off. And then adding that the post punk guitar on there for me, it almost has that, you know, a little bit of that Joy Division vibe. with that guitar. So I threw that on there because I wanted to have that element in there. I think it just sums it all up. And then her voice is great. So that with the whole, then adding the pads, that synth that comes in 3/4 of the way through, I think that gives to that dark wave vibe as well. So it kind of ends off with that, and kind of like the crescendo builds up from that, where it breaks off, and then you hear that dark wave synth pitching up in the drop, and then it just hits the drip. The guitar comes back in, and then all the techno elements come in, because I chopped up some percussion loops that I played in, but then I consolidated them into one loop. Then I chopped them up again, consolidated it into a loop again, just so I could get those kind of like atonal frequencies in the percussion, and it all really worked together. I was really happy that all worked together, because I didn't know if it was going to. I mean, I had the idea before I went into it. That's why it took me even a little bit longer to get it to you, because I was like, okay, it's coming out good, but it's not, it's not getting to where I want it to get. And then the more I worked on it, the more those elements came together. And then the more, when I added that last synth at the end, then it was able to, like, okay, now I don't just have this track that's going to be all the way the same all the way through the end. Now I have this extra it is kind of trancy, but it's more dark wave sounding, that little uplifting sense that comes in there at the end. And I think that really kind of like carried it to where it was. And it was just very easy to build around those lyrics, because they're gnarly, and it's great. And because we don't want that, even in our 6 Feet Under nights, we don't want that kind of vibe. We don't want those kind of people at our night. So,
oh yeah, for sure.
So for me, and we've had that, experience sometimes here. We've had some people that have.
Yeah, you mentioned, like, you were talking about the scene in the 80s, do you still kind of,
once in a while,
do you get a little bit of that still, or?
What's that?
I mean, do you get a little bit of that still? I mean, they're
every
they're
now and
everywhere.
then, every now and then, they will rear their ugly head when something goes their way. They'll feel the ability to be able to, like, speak out about those kind of things, but we don't tolerate it. I won't tolerate any racism at our events at all. I would just want not tolerate it. So I don't want those kind of people coming. It's usually that. It's usually, that element is still, I think, everywhere. So you have to be cautious of it and aware of it. But that's what's so great about this song. It's like an anthem to tell those people to fuck off and stay away from our environment, because we don't want them there. And it's great. It's a great track, and it's really great that she made that track. And I know it probably has a lot to do with where she lives as well. In those European countries, they deal with the problem too. Still to this day, they deal with it.
Oh, so. Yeah, I'd say there's a rise in extremist right-wing politics, like, in a lot of places right now, and definitely in Europe, definitely here, in Canada. I don't know, probably other places as well, but
yeah. We got to speak out.
The only thing we can do really is to
let our heart express it.
Yeah, talk about it.
Exactly.
Actively fight against it. With speech really is all we have. Just education and just making our voices heard, as loudly as we can against it. So, yeah.
100%. And we've done that at our events. Sorry, we've done that at our 6 Feet Under events. We've I put up in my stories and on my pages on the 6 Feet Under website, this is what we will not tolerate. And because we have a very, very, our crowd is like, it's a cultural rainbow of people, and that's what we want to keep it. We don't want any of this negative energies at any of our events.
Yeah.
So it's a great song for that. I'm even playing it a lot. I played it at our last event. People loved it.
Yeah, I think all we have really at this point is community.
Oh, it's so funny because Daniel Meyer came up when I was playing it. He's my guest DJ last night.
Yeah.
He came up into the DJ booth. What's that track? And I said, oh, it's a new remix I did for Strict Tempo. I told him. He took a picture of it and everything.
Oh, cool. I'll have to send him the remix album.
Send it, because he really loved it. He's from Germany too, so he knows.
So he knows
all those things. So
I know it's with the history there, but there is like an active Nazi party there,
Oh yes,
it's like
I know.
I
It's
mean,
terrible.
I think that they are especially aware of the history, which is maybe helpful in
That-
combating those ideas.
That's
But
yes.
I mean, we could talk about this in its whole other episode. It's
Hours.
like,
It's a whole nother
yeah,
topic. Yeah, a whole nother,
America is just like,
no, whole nother huge topic.
history is repeating itself. It goes over so many people's
Yeah,
heads entirely.
yeah,
It doesn't even
right.
occur to them that it's happening. They're just willfully ignoring it and like
Yeah,
reframing it
totally.
as something else. But anyway, um, well, yeah, I think it's very important to, use the platforms that we have to speak against
Absolutely.
all forms of hatred, prejudice, um, all the isms, really. No
Yeah.
racism, sexism, misogyny, xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia. It's like
Oh
all,
yeah.
all, all these
That's why
ugly things are really bubbling to the surface, and
yeah,
people are feeling really emboldened to act on these ideas of hate. So I
terrible.
think it's especially
Terrible.
important for those of us who get it to work against it as most the best we can. So yeah, I
Absolutely.
appreciated you and everyone else who took the time to make these remixes, and just kind of spread that message further. I mean,
Absolutely.
it might be like a generally kind of small platform in terms of like the change, the scale of the world or whatever, but or
But
even
every bit counts, and we want our
mhm.
scene to like know this is where we stand on things, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it can be, it doesn't matter like how small the platform is. I think everyone needs to do their part in combating these ideas, and, we'll have a better chance of
Yeah,
actually, you know, sup suppressing them, changing minds. I don't really know what the outcome there is. I guess those things.
yeah, no,
Uh,
it makes a difference. It makes
he
a huge difference.
healing it, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, ugh.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I
yeah.
have all those things on our website. I mean, we have a list of just things we will not tolerate, you know.
Yeah,
It's
that's really important also as a curator of a space, you're setting an example, so it's very important to let people know that those things won't fly, in
yeah.
your space or in the community in general. Just
Oh yeah,
set the
yeah,
standard for I mean expectations, and I mean
absolutely,
don't, definitely don't enable it, but don't even, just no tolerance whatsoever. Um,
absolutely.
I've gotten like nearly punched in the face by this guy who was talking about how we should welcome Nazis into our clubs one time, and I won't say who it is, but he's actually a prominent goth musician.
Oh my God,
Um,
really? Jeez.
yeah, to avoid like, yeah, anyway, libel or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Yeah.
but also known for his violence against women, so I guess that was
Oh wow. Okay.
reinforced doubly there, like
Well, those two things kind of
pro-Nazi
together, don't
stance, and
they? They kind of go together, don't they? Those kind of things.
yeah, he had to be like held back from like attacking me. Um,
My God.
just,
Jeez.
I mean, he was like, it was like at an after party situation. Sorry, we're in tangent time. And
Wow.
he just randomly brought it up. Like everyone was like sitting around, like we had just gotten drinks poured and stuff, and he just like randomly started. This like came out of nowhere, absolutely. And he was like, you know what?
Wow.
We need to be friendlier to Nazis in our like parties. I'm like, what is this guy like? Where did this come from? Um,
Jeez.
he saw the platform and he was like, I'm gonna take it. And I was like, what the
That's
fuck?
crazy.
No, no, no. Anyway,
Yeah, there's a lot of messed up people out
I
there.
think, regardless of what the audience is, it's important to stand up for those things. So sorry, I'm going on all sorts of tangents now.
No, it's great.
But
No,
yeah, we
I feel,
are, as influencers of any level, I'd say it's very important for us to take a firm stance. So,
yes.
all
Yeah.
right. With all
Yeah.
of that being
Good
said,
choice. Yeah.
we can listen to the track. This is the Hex Machine's reanimated remix of Susie Sabotage, her great track, which was released a couple years ago and was it was like an underground, goth post-punk hit at the time as well. But basically, I started talking to her a couple months ago, about potentially doing a show here in LA, and it didn't work out for whatever reasons, doesn't matter. But I was thinking about that track since we were talking, and I was like, that's like that really needs to be heard more right now. It's like really just relevant to the times, and I would love to get like this track a second wind. So I had the idea of setting up the remix album And I got so many people interested. I was initially planning on just being a couple remixes, and it had such a positive reception, and everyone did such a great job. I asked more people than I even thought would be able to contribute, or like finish it in time, since it was a short turnover time. Um, speaking, it was only like, maybe 2 months total for most people or less.
Mm,
And everyone just really killed it. So I ended up including every single remix that was
that's
initially
great.
like talked about, but including Hex Machines, which we are going to listen to now. And that was the Hex Machine's reanimated remix of Susie Sabotage, Nazi Goths Fuck Off, which we talked about the extreme importance of and that messaging right now. But yeah, I think everyone and Hex Machine did a great job on those remixes. It's available on the Street Tempo Bandcamp page right now, and soon on streaming services. Yeah, I've had an ordeal getting them up there, but they will be up there hopefully in the next like 2 weeks at most. Uh, that's a whole other thing. We don't have to get into it, but it's been a pain. But anyway,
Yeah.
so that was that track, and we're gonna listen to another remix next. We're gonna listen to Disexual, who are a really fun dark electronic EBM synth pop sort of duo based here in Los Angeles. So I had the pleasure of hosting actually for the Strict Tempo launch party. And that was really funny because Mark Cage also did a remix on this release as well. It was like a remix EP, right? And I was just about to play 6 Feet Under when we were talking about the event, like the Strict Tempo launch party, right? And then I didn't know that Mark Cage is actually a member of Blood Handsome, like the live version of it. So it was like just like a cohesion of like the minds there.
Yeah,
It was like I'm about to play 6 Feet Under, hosted by Hex Machine, who did the remix for Disexual, along with Mark Cage, who is playing the event in LA.
Right
Anyway,
on.
I just thought that was funny. The scene gets smaller.
Yes, it's the
um,
7 degrees of separation thing, right?
something like that. So we're gonna listen to Disexual and the Hex Machines remix of the great track Need to Sin. Okay, so we just heard two remixes, bonus time. The last one was the Full Metal Witch remix. It's a great band, now based in Sacramento. Well, at least Lynette is based there. I think some of the other members are maybe still in Europe. But yeah, that was the Full Metal Witch remix, which I really enjoyed that title. But
Yeah,
yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about that remix and the Disexual remix that we heard right before that as well, of the Need to Sin
sure.
track?
Yeah, we'll need to sin. I love Anton's productions. He's great with everything he does, and
Oh yeah,
I loved his
total
stuff.
pro.
Yeah, I love the stuff he did with Blacklight Odyssey as well.
Hmm.
Doing that remix for them was also really fun. I love that remix. And then so it was just automatic, to do another remix for them for the Disexual project.
Hmm.
And with that, I just wanted to add, like, I wanted to keep the same because it hit pretty hard anyway. So I just wanted to add my Hex Machine flavor to it. So that's pretty much all I did. Just added a bunch of crazy synths and sounds, and made the bass line a little more. I put it like a more gnarly, like EBM kind of FM bass sound on there, and yeah, and just like really kind of diced it up a little. And I love that remix. I've gotten a lot of love for that, so that's good.
Yeah, definitely.
And
So
then yeah,
yeah, the
and then the
next one.
best remix, yeah, that was fun to do. I originally wanted to do a remix of her, which is the witches. It's something with the witches. It's like an acapella kind of track that she has. It
Hmm.
goes crazy, and
Okay.
she does this witchy like, oh my god, I forget the name of the track. Anyway, I originally wanted to remix that, but she didn't have any of the original parts for it,
Oh
so
no.
we couldn't do it. And she tried to get them from her old partner, but I don't know, he couldn't find him or whatever. It just didn't happen. So it couldn't
Uh-huh.
happen. So she asked me if I wanted to remix one of the ones off the new album coming out, and that was I Am
Hmm.
This. So, in which hits right at home with me. Anything about spells or witchy stuff, I'm gonna do. So,
Sure.
yeah. So, and I just took the vocal and a couple of the other smaller uh, uh, I know there's some like really ambient sounds in that track in the original. So I pulled a couple of those and just chopped them up and redid them. But then I actually took her vocal, and they had some good vocal lips. I know that they put her into a vocoder too. So I used that. But then I also put her voice into to one of my samplers. I used one of their plugins, one of their gate plugins to like gate the vocal and put some crazy effects on it. And then I chopped it up again and then consolidated it all. And that's how I got that cool little loop in there of her vocal, because that's not on the original. I added that. It's only on my mix.
Okay.
So where her vocal is looping and chopped up and doing all that like that.
Hmm.
That's that's something that I added to it. I liked playing around with her voice. She has such a great voice. It's amazing. When she played live here with us, we did a show with her here, a 6 Feet Under show,
Hmm.
and they told that she was amazing. And so I was just really happy to be able to do that track with her. It's kind of like a project that I've been wanting to do for a long time. So, and she's
Yeah.
great. I love
Yeah,
her.
Be Still Now is also a strict tempo expat for live shows and contributed a fresh mix of one of the tracks on that last album too, on
Yeah,
the compilation album too, the strict tempo comp.
yeah,
Um, yeah, we are big fans of them here.
yeah, yeah. Very much in the
Little
vibe.
shout out.
Tracks. Yeah, I play a lot of their tracks at 6 Feet Under. So yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead into like a few like little closing questions here. I'm gonna wrap things up in a bit. So do you want to tell me who your some of your current favorite producers, musicians, DJs, just music, what some of your favorite music right now is, or music people? I don't know.
Yeah, how that question goes being a DJ. Well, I've got a few, to be honest. One of the ones I'm really, really into right now. Well, I've been into for a while, but I really love what they're doing right now, and that's I hope I don't destroy the name, but
Mhm.
Aminati.
Okay.
has some great. It's very tribal. It's dark, but it's very tribal. It's got that Mediterranean vibe to it. It's the lower BPM for sure, but it's probably around, a lot of its stuff's around 80 BPM. And there are tracks that are in the higher BPM, maybe a little bit, or you could say they're 140. They're either 80 or 140. So, but I love their stuff they're doing. It's incredible. Got a new album out called Catharsis. That's just it's incredible. I also love Lorne.
Oh, like that Acid Rain. That
I
one.
love that track. I love that track.
That has a really cool music video. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's amazing. That's kind of
Yeah.
what sells the track, right? I
Hmm.
mean, to me, without that video, it probably wouldn't have done so well. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
what I mean, I just think that, yeah, that's like a epic, yeah, it's such an epic track, and just the way it's got such a great aesthetic about it, you know.
Hmm.
Um, then I like some. There's some other bands, and I'm trying to think. I like some of the bands here in town. I mean, in America, I like. I'm always sliding towards the EBM stuff. I love the EBM stuff, so I like the
Hmm.
Buzzkill stuff a lot.
Yeah.
I like, but I also like that new album that Normal Bias came out with. I think that's really good. It's like throwback. It kind of sounds like an '80s like kind of vibe to me a little bit, like an '80s
Hmm.
techno synth pop kind of vibe. But it's cool. It's got a modern edge to it too.
Yeah.
I like. I love the band. We have a local band here that's just great. Corbo Hangs. I mean, they're amazing. A lot of their stuff they're doing post punk, but they're also doing some industrial stuff now. Also,
Okay.
Tassel from here. They're also a great band. I mean, I know I'm probably being a little bit biased because I mix and mastered their stuff, but
That's
but
okay.
they come out. They have some great stuff. They do post punk and industrial as
This is your
well.
shout out section, so you get to
Yeah,
choose.
a little AZ shout out. Yeah, I also like this band. I don't know how to say it. It's a French band, Denuit or Denuit.
Denuit, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, Cenuit. I love their stuff. That track "Bleeding" I think is just epic. That's a 6 feet
Mm.
under.
Yeah, I really
That's a
like that band
six
too.
feet under anthem. Trying to think of some other this band Duct Tape out of Hungary, or not Hungary, out of Turkey. They just did
Yeah, also
they
solid.
song with "She Passed Away," that new single. That's great. I love that. Yeah, and as far as techno, I mean, I still love the Schweffelgelb stuff. I mean, they got that new EP coming out, and they just released a track from that, which is killer. I mean, that's a track that I'm definitely gonna be hammering in the club. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, I like I love Mutant stuff. Joseph Mutant, he's
Mhm.
great. I had him play here for Halloween.
Yeah.
Uh, he
Played
killed
on
it.
the first strict tempo online show.
Oh yeah,
So I had planned to do a strict tempo in Austin, Texas, like when the pandemic kicked off.
yeah,
Everyone's worst
yeah.
the worst drop that happened,
Oh,
COVID. But anyway,
yeah.
so he ended up. I asked him like right away because we were gonna do a show down there together. That never happened. But
Great.
yeah, yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah, yeah, me
Eh,
too. Big fan.
anyone else?
Well, I love, I mean, they're getting a lot more popular now, but Ultra Sun, I really love their
Mhm.
stuff because I think they kind of hit every aspect of what we do in the scene. They're dark wave, they're EBM, they're everything, and I love their
Yeah,
stuff.
I,
Yeah,
I'm I'm happy to see that too, because I mean I've been playing their stuff since like they started pretty much, and
me
I
too.
had them on strict tempo like when they were still pretty unknown. Like they did a DJ set because I don't think they could do like
Oh,
a live set from home at the time, but that was like maybe 3 years ago. So it's been really cool to watch them just take off since then. Yeah,
yeah, their
they,
show here, they killed it. They
their
played
music
here.
is really good, so I'm glad that people are responding to that because sometimes the bands that end up getting more popular don't actually it's not like relative to the quality of the music, so I think
Right,
in
exactly.
that case it's the music
Ab-
is really good, so it's paying off.
Absolutely. Yeah, 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 100%. So yeah, I think that's probably right now what's really. I mean, I'm sure there's millions more, but those are the ones that come to mind at the moment. I also like Dina Summer, which is actually Local Suicide. I like a lot of their stuff they're putting out. Um,
Hmm.
and then yeah, I guess that's it really. I mean,
Okay.
there's so much. I mean, you know how it goes there.
Yeah. This could go on for a while for sure.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And I love, like I said, like a lot of the stuff Disexual's doing. I mean, I don't know. I'm all about promoting the people that I feel like get it. You know, they're about the scene. They're not just about, they're not, they're there for the long haul. And
Hmm.
like, yeah, I love that. Love that.
So this kind of ties into that last question, but what do you find yourself listening to the most right now?
Listening to the most right now,
It may have been something you already mentioned, but yeah.
like as far as like the artist, yeah.
Or artist or like an album in particular.
I
Yeah.
love the new Cure album. I love
Oh,
that.
okay, for sure.
Yeah, really into it. It's amazing. I mean, I saw them live last year here, and they've lost nothing. They're amazing. I mean, they're in their 60s now, and they're killing it. I
Hmm.
just, he's just. I mean, he's a living legend, and he always will
Yeah.
be. I just think everything he's done, he's created this scene. I mean, if you ask me, he's the godfather of the goth scene. That's how I feel about it. And
Yeah.
he played with Susie. I mean, he's done so many great things that are and he never stops. He always fights for the crowd too. He's not about the politics of all of it. I mean, what he did with Ticketmaster and getting those tickets cheaper. I mean, just everything he does is like, for me, like I love it. I love who he is as a person. He's very he's very androgynous. That's how I feel myself to be. So I love that aspect of him as well. So I'm listening to that album a lot. And I'm also
Mm.
listening, like I said, the Aminati album a lot. That new one, I've had it on repeat for the past few days. I just think it's epic because it also kind of ties in with the kind of music I make a little bit. I mean, my music's way harder than his, and it's
Hmm.
way more. But he has a whole, he has a whole, yeah, story around what he does, and I love that. And it's really he's from Greece. But yeah,
Yeah, I don't think I'm familiar with this artist. Can you say it again? The name?
Aminati. It's
Almanac.
A. Let me just spell it out here. I have it here somewhere. It's Amanati.
Yeah,
It's very,
I don't know them.
it has a very like Mediterranean vibe to it.
Okay.
Very the belly dancing. A lot of exotic dancers dance to his music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that whole space. It's open. His music's very open, and it's you know, it creates a lot of space, but at the same time, it's like there's not a lot going on in the music, but it's this landscape. Is brilliant. It's brilliant. Yeah. So that's yeah. I highly recommend that to everybody. And then all the other bands I mentioned too. But that's what I'm listening to the most right now is those two things. I love the Cure. I'm a huge I'm a Cure fan. So and there's some great bands that are coming out too. I mean, I love, to be honest, we had Traders here, and I thought they were so great. I mean, I was just blown away by, and they're such sweet guys. Um,
Hmm.
so I listen to their music a lot too. I know they haven't put out anything new in a while, but I love their stuff too. I listen to all that and I listen to a lot of the older cool stuff like London After Midnight, and I still find myself getting listening to this throwback stuff. Like stuff that's more kind of rock based because I don't always want to listen to dance music, so a lot of times I listen to a lot of classical music in the car because that's where I came from with all my my early years. I'm a classically trained musician, so I'm still into all that. I listen to a lot of Mozart, and I listen to a lot of the new guys that I consider to be really good composers too, but Joe Beving and who's the other guy, um, Max Reiter or Reiter. I don't know how you say his name. Anyway,
Hmm.
he's Hans Zimmer. I mean, I'm really into that. That's what I listen to a lot of.
Okay. So I have one final question for you. And
Sure.
so it sort of ties into like you as a listener. So what would you say your favorite show, like the most formative live experience you've had in music as an audience member? If you can think of one or maybe two or something, if you can.
I can think of three.
Okay, there we go.
Well,
That works.
maybe four. So, as an audience member,
The
okay,
best shows ever.
I'm going to say five.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay.
well, the band I've seen the most in my lifetime
We
is
got
the
a whole
Ramones.
listicle coming.
Yeah, is the Ramones. That's the band I've seen the most in my lifetime is the Ramones.
Okay.
Saw them probably 7 times or more. The second would be The Cure. Um, and that last show, it was almost like 2.5 hours, maybe longer. And it was just, and I had amazing seats. I got so lucky on the draw, when they put the tickets out. I was like in the 23rd row on the floor. I was so close to him. It was like, it was amazing. Um, and then the other ones would be would be Oingo Boingo. They were epic back in the day. I mean, I was like, that blew me away. Like their live shows blew me away. Like yeah, it was incredible. And then Tangerine Dream as well. Tangerine Dream when they had the original members, that was that show was just off the charts. It like took me to a whole nother experience. And then I would say Massive Attack.
Okay.
Was
I've heard that one a number of times, actually. People really like Massive Attack live.
yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible. And they have a lot to say. They had these banners up behind them the whole time, same
Mhm.
thing. It was a whole experience. Those are the
Okay.
kind of shows I like to go to. I like the interactive and the visual experiences too, and that's how Tangerine Dream was.
Mhm.
That's how Oingo Boingo was. I mean, that was when Danny Elfman was with them. Not now. I saw them in their new. It's just not the same. It's like taking Jim Morrison out of the doors. It's just not the same. And I'm a huge Danny Elfman fan. I mean, I love everything he does. I love his soundtracks. I love his solo work. I love the stuff he did with Oingo Boingo. All the stuff he did with Tim Burton is like, yeah, I listen to that stuff all the time. So, I mean, he's a big inspiration for me. Danny Elfman, and the fact that he's in his he's got to be close to 70 now too. I mean, all these guys. I mean, they're living legends, and they should be respected, and people should know about them, because they're a
Yeah,
lot of those
definitely.
guys why we're where we're at. A lot of those guys, they've just been so they've just been so influential on everything. Robert
Mhm.
Smith especially, who's been influential. Most of these, so many bands try to sound like them. It's kind of funny, but but um and then I guess Sisters of Mercy too. I mean, that's another huge, influence on me. So, um,
How do you feel
yeah,
about their recent live shows?
well, I saw it last year, and I thought I didn't go this year because it
Mhm.
was on my birthday and I had other plans.
Yeah.
But I loved their live show last year. I thought it was really good. I was impressed. I,
Oh,
I, I
really?
think that he's still going as hard as he is. I was
Mhm.
impressed. I'm sure people, are going to hate on it because it's not the three of them, but it hasn't been the three of them in years. So, I mean, they broke up a long, long time ago, and we all know that. I mean, even the
Yeah,
second of the Sisters of Mercy wasn't the three original guys.
right.
So, they went off and did their own things, the Mission and Fields of Nephilim. All those things are all those bands are great. But it's a nostalgic thing, I guess, for me too. It's like it was a huge influence on me when I was in my teen years. Sisters of Mercy. I remember when
Yeah.
their album Black Planet came out, and I was like, because I had all their vinyl singles, I bought that at that place Roads to Moscow. And then when the Black Planet album, or First, Last, and Always, I call it the Black Planet album, but the First, Last, and Always. I mean that. That has everything in it because they're using a drum machine and then they're playing guitars, and they're one of the first ones to do that. Use the drum machine for their backing. They didn't even have a drummer. They had a drum machine, and then they're playing their guitars and the bass and singing. So they're a huge influence, not just on post punk, but also on electronic music. And a lot of people I don't think realize that they use a lot of the great
Mhm.
drum machines that I still even use today, samples from those drum machines. That epic, like that's epic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, do you have any other closing thoughts? Anything else you want to talk about here?
Well, I got some remixes that I'm going to be putting out. I've been doing a remix for Contravoid of "Open the Wound." I've been doing that for a
I
long
guess
time.
future plans. That is something that I actually accidentally
Yeah,
skipped.
I keep
Um,
changing what I want to do with it. It's like it's such a badass. I think I'm doing a really badass job on it, to be honest. I don't usually brag about my stuff and that's one, but this is killer. It's got like a really good, gnarly, like industrial vibe to it. So I'm like opening it up a little bit with the vocal. So it's going to be different, a lot different from the original because all I'm using from the original is his vocal. So I know I'm gonna have it finished soon. It's just that I want it to be perfect. So I'll probably that'll probably be finished in like probably this month. I'll have that finished, and then another remix for Disexual.
Oh, another one. Okay, cool. What
Yeah,
track? Can you
they're
tell us
Pulse,
what track that will be, or
track
no?
Pulse. It's that track Pulse. I love it. It's a track
Wait, can you
Pulse.
say it again?
Pulse, Pulse, Pulse.
Pulse.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's on their new EP they just put out.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing a remix of that. I just got the parts for it, yeah, like a week ago. So,
All right. You heard it here first. Inside
yeah,
scoop alert.
yeah. I got that one. I have some other remixes that's coming out too, but they're in the wraps. I can't talk about that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I got my own productions coming out too. So I got a lot of that coming out. So excited about that. I got some cool ones coming out with some guest vocalists that are pretty rad. So I'm excited
Okay.
to get those. Yeah.
Nice.
And like I said, I'm doing another EP. It's going to be that very, very Mediterranean kind of dark vibe that it's going to be a lot like Hex and Crimson. It'll have those melodic elements, but it's also going to be very dark and tribal.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough of that influence right now in the scene, so I'm happy to see someone going there.
And I have
The world music influence.
Yeah, and I have the equipment that I love to use with it. I have the Rolly Seaboard too, keyboard, which is amazing. And you can, I can do all the MIDI expression, and it gets written right into it. So I can play everything live, and I don't have to go in with automation to do the bends and with the cutoff and everything. I can do that straight from the keyboard. I don't have to go in afterwards. So I can play a lot of this stuff live. It's so expressive. The MIDI expression on it is incredible. So I love that keyboard. Yeah, that's a new that's a new thing that I'm incorporating. So pretty excited about that.
Cool. And then just hosting a bunch of bands.
Yeah, I got more shows coming up for sure.
DJing, that whole thing.
I've got some great shows coming up. Got Lebanon, Hanover in April, which should be really, really great.
Oh, nice.
It hasn't totally sealed on the venue yet, but I've got the dates. So
cool.
If that's gonna happen. I was supposed to have them here in November, but they couldn't get their visas. So
yikes. Yeah, we'll see how that changes in the coming months.
It's a hard problem for people. It's hard. It costs like $4,000. It's $4,000 each for those visas now. People coming from Europe, it costs them like $4,000 to get those things now.
Yeah, that's so cost prohibitive for most of the bands in the scene. You got to be.
And then I got a vamp coming up. I got a vamp coming up on the 29th of this month, November, which is going to be epic. We've got great performers. We got Misconstrued and Modified Binds are doing Veil of Shadows Cabaret. I've got Charlie Ropes doing her Shibari routine Crimson. Yeah. I've got Lalo doing live art, and then I've got myself and Vamp Feline DJing. So it's going to be another epic vamp. And then we have a Friday the 13th in December with which is our Friday the 13th goth night thing. And then we got trying to bring you out again. Hopefully in January. Year.
Yeah, for sure.
2025, you'll be one of our first yes. So
cool. Yeah, I always love playing there. Great crowd, great energy. We have solid selections.
Our crowd is great. We have a great community here. They're very, very amazing community. So makes it all worthwhile.
For sure. Cool. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
You can check out Hex Machine's music over on Bandcamp on hexmachine.bandcamp.com. Post the link in the chat. And then also on streaming services. I think most of your music is up there, right?
Yeah. The major streaming services.
And I just posted the link tree also for all the socials as well. You've got the Instagram, you've got the Facebook. I don't know where else you're at, but other places probably. Maybe.
I'm mostly just Instagram and Facebook.
Oh, okay. I was actually thinking about it. I don't know.
We have our website too. 6 Feet Under.
I'm the only person on 15 different platforms. Oh, okay.
Then we have our website. I have a website too, 6feetunderphoenix.com.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Under
What's that? 6 feet under is 6 spelled out?
No, it's 6 the number, then
Oh,
feet
okay.
under and phx.com.
Okay, cool. I'll put that in there too. Websites and things to listen
Oh yeah.
more. And if you're in Phoenix, definitely check out the awesome nights he's doing over there, hosting lots of great bands and the dark alternative scene, and lots of great dance events. All the things happening, all the cool
Yeah.
things. If you don't know already, which I assume if you're in Phoenix, you and wanting to go to shows and stuff, maybe you know already. But anyway,
A lot of
okay,
people
so,
find out
huh?
about it every month. A lot of people find out about us every month, so it's great. We always have new
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to begin the raid now. If you don't have anything else for us, and you can find this interview up on YouTube later on my channel, Vox Sinistra, same as my here on Twitch. Um, and yeah, big thanks to Hex Machine for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was great. Always good.